Hey guys, welcome to my UFC 320 full card breakdown. It looks like the stream is finally working correctly, I hope at least. Let me know if you can hear me, please. Hey River. Alright, great. Okay, nice. Since we're starting a little bit later than usual, we'll probably do like 5 or so minutes of questions, then get into the card. There are some fights that are so stupid, we're gonna kind of just glaze over because breaking down a minus 1200 favorite isn't really worth much in my opinion. But yeah, ask whatever questions to start with, not related to breaking down these current fights, and then we'll move on in around 5 or so minutes. Half the fights on this card could be done by email, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Vines is gonna be a fight. I can say that much. Actually, it's probably not gonna be a fight, it's gonna be an execution, but you guys know that. Islam versus JDM, who you got? Okay, so I think I'm leaning JDM on that one. The reason why I'm not crazy confident, and I've said this a few times, is because when JDM is fighting a grappler now, it seems like his strategy to avoid the fact that his high guard was bringing him a lot of problems against grapplers is to just drop his hands when he thinks they could shoot. Which is not terrible. I mean, it's definitely a strategy. A lot of like pure strikers are experimenting with either keeping one hand down or dropping both hands or whatever when in the pocket. The problem is that Islam is not a pure wrestler, right? Like, you can't just tank shots from him like you can Bilal. So Islam will have the opportunity to land, which definitely could be a bigger problem for JDM. That being said, Islam also does not have Bilal's chin, so I think that he gets clipped in the pocket and then probably either has to very quickly adjust or gets put out. So I am leaning JDM because of it, but it is a fight that could go either way. What's up, Oracle? What did you think of Reyes versus Alberg? Reyes looked like he just had no clue how to initiate and just got caught badly again. Yeah, that was strange. I know Reyes doesn't go forwards that frequently, but it's not like he hadn't in his last few fights. Like the sequence in which he finished Jacoby, he was going forwards very comfortably. He went forwards against Smith, but yeah, it's Smith. But he even did against Krylov to drag him back into the left hand. So I am surprised that he was not comfortable moving forwards and just tried to kick on the outside. He does have solid kicks when he gets into the groove of them, but I don't know. Maybe Reyes got into his own head about it. It was very strange. But to be fair, again, Alberg looked much better because maybe Reyes was not expecting Alberg to be capable of throwing a straight shot because he kind of wasn't in the past. And now Alberg was countering properly and even initiating with the straight shots. So yeah, so Alberg definitely improved. I respect him there. Thoughts on Usman's performance? It kind of sucked in my opinion. Like, everyone's gonna have their opinions of the scoring. I did not watch the fight live. I had to watch it back a few hours later because I was not able to watch it at the time. But I thought that Hughes very clearly won rounds 2, 3, and 5. Like, I did not think they were mildly competitive. And then that was even with Usman, like, repetitively fouling. And if we take the fouls into account, it should have been at least 1 point deducted, probably 2 with how intentional the fouls looked. So yeah, I mean, really bad look for Usman. Not that I'm surprised. I don't think that he's a good fighter by any means. Hey, Gabriel, how are you doing? Glad to finally get here live for the first time. What's your thoughts on Ribovic's ceiling? Glad to see you here live. Ribovic's, he's fun. I don't think he's going to go that much further, though, because when he fights someone with clean technique, you could definitely see that he struggles. Like, he had to wait for, what's his name? Zellhuber to make a mistake like 5 or 6 times before he actually punished it, which is that with a much longer reach, Zahuber for some reason likes to trade in the pocket. So, and it took like Ribovics until round 3 to really effectively punish it. So, unless Ribovics really cleans up like his decision making and his ability to deal with like cleaner counter strikers, he's gonna have problems in my opinion. How about that 50-45? Yeah, that was bad. How do you rethink about Olberg's matchups in the top 5? I think he'll lose to Magomed in the Jiří matchup. It's 50-50 to me. Olberg still weights too much and his boxing defense is still suspect to me. Yeah, so after seeing that, I think his best matchup is actually Alex, because Alex kind of plays into his game with how he operates. Like, Alex is going to want to move forwards and is probably going to give Olberg the opportunity to use his counters with like the repetitive kicks on the outside and like even how he throws the jab to set up other stuff. Now, he's of course a lot more defensively responsible than Reyes, so I'm not trying to say that they are that similar by any means. But I think that someone like Ankalaev, just with his pure basic boxing pressure, or even Jiří with how much chaos he causes in the pocket, are harder matchups significantly for him than Alex. Now, would I definitively pick him against Alex? No. I'm not sure who I would pick right now, but I definitely don't think I would pick him against the other two. How far do you think Manuel Torres will go? I think he has a high ceiling. I think that the fight against Bahamondes was a wake-up call where he was like, okay, yeah, maybe I can't be swinging wildly against everyone, and I have to like actually pick my shots a little bit. And then against Drew Dober, he looked significantly improved. And Torres has some crazy power for lightweight. Like, he effectively put out Dober in one punch, and I know Dober was like still technically awake, but he was not there. So yeah, I think Torres has a reasonable ceiling, especially a win that ages really well now is his win over Duncan, because he just ragdolled and submitted Duncan, which is looking very good, seeing that Duncan submitted Vucenic and what's his name? The guy who always does stupid stuff in fights. I'm blanking on his name, but whatever. And the most recently took the close fight against Rebecki. Even though I thought he lost, it was a very good fight. Reyes or Ankalaev? I'm gonna say Ankalaev, because after seeing that, if Reyes is that afraid to like engage, I don't think he's gonna be just handed the win against Ankalaev. Is Usman on PEDs? I mean, maybe. It's hard to say. Like, especially if we're saying for, say, a EPO or something, right? Like, it's really hard to tell who's on EPO or not. Thoughts on Bilal versus Gary? I think you have to take Gary there. He's just, even though he's not the most entertaining at times, like, his fight IQ is solid, and he's going to fight in the perfect way to fight Bilal. So I'll have to figure out what that's going to be, but I am pretty confident that he will find the way. Also, Ian versus Canelo. Yeah, same thing. Can Gamrot beat Charles? Gamrot definitely can beat Charles. Will he? I'm leaning towards no. I do think that... So Gamrot is actually pretty dangerous in round 1. He does have power in his hands, but the danger falls off very rapidly after round 1. So if Oliveira gets through round 1, which I do expect him to, then I don't think there's much of a chance of being TKO'd. And at that point, it's like, okay, Oliveira can pull the guillotines and do that stuff, because it'll probably be the most significant moment of the round. So even if Oliveira doesn't find the finish, he will probably have at least 3 of those moments that are big enough to win rounds. So I do think that there's a possibility that Oliveira wins a like submission score heavy decision, which I know people aren't expecting, but it's very possible in my opinion. Is your health okay now? Never perfect, unfortunately, but not terrible. I can't complain too much. I appreciate you asking, though. Oki, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Logi Oki. Who wins, Jiří or Ankalaev? It really depends on Yuri's game plan. Because if Jiří tries to fight like a technical fighter, he's screwed. because Ankalaev is a much better technical boxer. If Jiří's like, okay, I'm just gonna run at this guy and throw stuff, he has a solid chance, because Ankalaev was having trouble when Santos just started brawling, and he was also having trouble with Walker's unorthodox stuff, until Walker just having zero footwork and gassing in about 2 minutes got him doomed there. But generally speaking, Ankalaev has trouble with more unorthodox stuff because he is very reads reliant, and he has trouble making those reads. So if Jiří just gives him too much to read, he may be able to catch him and put him out fairly quickly. So I'm going to say it really depends on game plan there. I don't know who I would pick. I would have to think about that more. The knee is there for Gary. Gary needs his spam knee. Is very possible. How do you think Joel Alvarez does at welterweight? Well, he's probably going to butcher poor Vicente Luque. They're just trying to kill Vicente Luque at this point. I do not like it. As far as how far can he go, we'll have to see like exactly how good he looks against Luque, and then we'll kind of base it on that, in my opinion. Thoughts on Arman versus Hooker? Remember you saying he should get booked against Dawson? Yeah, I'm not shocked the matchup happened. I unfortunately do have to favor Arman, but I do hope Hooker pulls it off. I do not like Arman, to say the least. My friend says Usman would be a champ at 155. I think there are moments in the fight where if Paul is replaced with Ilya, he would get turned into Red Mist. The question is not whether Usman would be champion at 155, it's whether he would be able to beat like the 15th ranked fighter, whoever that is right now. Usman is definitely not breaking top 10 in UFC. Whether he breaks top 15 is very questionable, because like, imagine him against, say, what's a good, like Rebecki even. Right? In a 3-round fight, I think Rebecki probably beats him. Like, I think Oralbai is 170 now, so I can't say Oralbai. But like, if Oralbai was still 155, right? And like in a 3-round fight, I'm probably picking Oralbai there. So I don't think Usman or Magomedov is going anywhere. Thoughts on Atabak Gautier? Ceiling. His ceiling is definitely high. He needs to fix his fluidity, though, in my opinion. Because even though his ground game is the obvious, like, oh, okay, if you can get him down, yeah, he's in trouble. But on the feet also, he might be chinnable. Like, we have to see someone who actually has competent striking fight him to see how good his defense is, because his striking has seemed a little bit stiff to me. I think Moicano beats both Paul Hughes and Usman Magomedov. Yeah, I agree. Kevin Holland's potential. Amazing potential, never uses it. This is going to sound dumb, but Cory in the suit of the press conference reminds me of Dominic Cruz. I mean, it's not dumb. I mean, they both are footwork-intensive fighters who try to use intelligence again to craft styles to win fights. It makes sense. And your why Islam will eventually lose video gave a few reasons why Dan could cause problems to Islam. And do you believe any of those same things apply? In terms of the JDM fight? Oh, no, you mean for Arman? Yes and no. In terms of Hooker hitting the knee, Hooker's last few fights, he hasn't even really looked for the knee, which I don't know why. I assume he'll go back to it here. And like, yeah, I know Gamrot shoots very low singles, so it's a lot harder to time a knee on it. But I am surprised that Hooker didn't even really show the knee. I mean, maybe he did like once or twice, but it wasn't a repetitive thing. So I would have to, like, it is possible he goes back to it and finds a way to time and catch Arman, but I can't, like, make a prediction around that, unfortunately. Hadi versus Justin needs to happen too. I think Hooker has a decent chance to outdog Arman, especially in 5-rounder. Hooker's takedown defense would have had to be dramatically improved, because it's not like Gamrot, where Gamrot will get you down, hit you a few times, then you get up. That happens with pretty much everyone Gamrot takes down, unless you're Jeremy Stevens. But if you're against Arman, you get taken down, you might be there for a while, and he also has a lot more devastating ground and pound. Why don't you like Arman? I think he is he is factually very spoiled. I think he's a crybaby. I think that he is a coward because he didn't want to fight Gamrot. I mean, I have a lot of negative adjectives for him. I don't think he deserves to be fighting a #1 contender fight, to say the least, because again, he messed up the pay-per-view, and if we believe Dana, it's because Arman was going to miss weight. So we don't know for sure, but if we're believing Dana, then it's because he was going to miss weight, not because of a last-second injury thing. If it was because of a last-second injury thing, I don't know what the hell he was doing to cause that. And yeah, I mean, then he says he'll fight anyone, turns down Gamrot, and still expects a title shot, even though he said that he would fight anyone. I just don't like anything about him. And BSD beat Dariush. Yeah, he definitely has a chance to chin him, because Dariush's chin is not spectacular, and Dariush was never fast, and age is not helping that. Do you think Usman would do well in the UFC? No, I do not. Not at all. You remember a fighter that was very mid, but then became elite out of the blue? That's a good question. You could say Oliveira. Like, that wouldn't be a bad pick. Oliveira just hit his stride where, like, he went from, okay, he's gonna highlight some unranked guys, to, wow, he is just destroying ranked guys. Alright, I'm gonna start the card breakdown now, and then I'll go back to questions either at the end or after prelims, depending on how quickly prelims go by. Let's do this. Okay. So, starting with Veronica Hardy versus Brogan Walker. As I said, with these massive favorite fights, I'm not going to go into it too much. Veronica Hardy is a Taekwondo fighter, fights like you would expect, except she's also added takedowns into her game. Not a world beater, but again, especially with her background and the fact that Dan Hardy is in her corner and helping her game plan, solid fighter for the WMA weight class. Brogan Walker sucks at everything. End of story. She's going to lose. If she somehow wins, I don't know how that's possible. So I'm going to say Veronica Hardy wins by late TKO. I don't think Walker's even going to survive the decision here. Brahimaj versus Vanderford. Okay, so Brahimaj started as a BJJ practitioner, so you could definitely see it reflected in his style where he's trying to just basically Damian Maia you. He's going to try to take you down, get to the back quickly, choke you out. Almost all of his wins were by submission initially. The problem with that became that if he cannot get that takedown, then he kind of has absolutely nothing. So that was shown when he got technically TKO'd. I believe it was his doctor stoppage. I'm blanking on who it was. Max Griffin, yeah. When he fought Max Griffin, his ear pretty much came off. It was a very disgusting doctor stoppage TKO. But yeah, that basically showed, like, okay, if he cannot get a takedown, he's in a lot of trouble because he has nothing else. He also got dropped by Court McGee, so his first fights were not pretty, to say the least. After his long layoff, he did not look good against Temba Greenbow, but I think part of that was because Temba was very careful about using body lock takedowns to get Brahimaj down and never overextending. A lot of that fight was just spent against the fence, where Greenbow was just racking up points by just kneeing the leg and then some knees to the body while clinching against the fence, not really going for anything and so on. So he stayed very safe that fight. But then after that fight, we saw that, like, okay, Brahimaj has some power on the feet. His stand-up defense kind of sucks. He'll get hit by pretty much anything you put out there, but luckily for him, he has the chin that he can kind of do that. Even though he did get dropped by Court McGee, he took a lot of hard shots from Griffin, so he's definitely durable. And he has developed a lot of power into his hands, to the point at which, like, okay, if he hits someone clean, he is probably going to put them out, or at least hurt them enough to make them rethink what they're doing. The Goff fight, Goff is really not the brightest. So I don't know why he decided he needs to wrestle with a BJJ practitioner and shoot a double leg on someone who knows how to guillotine, like, repetitively, but that is what it is. And he did show that his takedowns are getting better, in my opinion, because taking down Goff 2 times, even though I don't have the highest opinion of Goff, his takedown defense is not bad. Vanderford is a pure wrestler. By, like, pure wrestler, I mean that he doesn't even like taking the back, really. Like, that's how pure of a wrestler he is. He'll get you down, he'll hit you from full guard relatively comfortably. Then if you give him the pass, he will pass. He will try to his go-to move is get to side control and go for the arm triangle from there. Even if you give him your back, he will try to switch back to the arm triangle in side control. So that is pretty much all he goes for in terms of like quote-unquote submission grappling. He'll technically go for a rear naked choke, but you should not be getting rear naked choked by him. He does not have a good rear naked choke. In terms of getting the fight to the ground, he will just do anything. I mean, he's willing to grab a single, change it to a double in the center. He will, if you're stuffing that, which a lot of people do, he will push you against the fence and then kind of grind there on the double leg until he gets you down and keep going. On the feet, he has power in his hands, but he acts like he has to drop his hands after he does literally anything. You see him throw a kick, he drops both hands for like 2 seconds after. You see him throw a jab, his hands goes to his hips for like 3 seconds after. So yeah, his stand-up technicals are terrible, and he's also very chinny. Like, if you've seen his 2 losses, he basically just got touched and died. Like, he got dropped badly by a jab. And then I think in the other one, he got dropped by a hook that hit his guard and still hit him. And that was enough to put him down, basically. So I am going to have to favor Brahimaj here, even though he's a relatively big underdog, because Vanderford is going to be grinding for the takedown in a way that Brahimaj is able to threaten a sub. So maybe Vanderford's able to survive it and get him down and just ride out the entire round from there. But Brahimaj is going to have at least 1 or 2 attempts at a guillotine or an anaconda or something like that. And if it stays on the feet, which is possible, because again, Brahimaj may be able to stuff the takedowns. I'm sure now that he's like factor that in after the Greenbow fight, that he can't just be on his back the entire fight or being clinched against the fence. He definitely has a chance to catch Vanderford because he has enough power that if he catches a hook against Vanderford's guard, like Vanderford got caught by that in the past, he could rock Vanderford enough to the point that he's either able to TKO him or get like some submission off a desperation shot, or if Vanderford drops and then Brahimaj like takes a rear naked choke or something. So I'm going to take Brahimaj, and I'm going to say TKO, but I wouldn't be surprised with a sub or anything like that. I also wouldn't be shocked with the Vanderford control decision, but I think Brahimaj has a much higher ceiling. Okay, with Gutierrez versus Basharat. Gutierrez provides a lot of pressure. He goes forwards relatively consistently if you allow him to. If you like stand there and try to push him back, okay, then he's not going to move forwards. He'll feint a lot. He'll lift the knee like he's going to kick. He'll just like keep pump feinting with his hands as well. But he doesn't actually throw that much volume. So it's really weirdly deceptive. Like when you watch him fight, it's like, oh, he's doing a lot of stuff, but none of it really matters. His go-to is blast the calf kicks, damage your calf enough that you are no real threat, and then kind of just outpoint you. His spinning stuff is relatively good. He'll throw his spinning kicks. He has gotten a finish with the spinning back fist, I believe. So he'll try to set that stuff up. He'll fake it as well. He'll feint like pretty much anything in the world. He, of course, caught Frankie Edgar with the knee, so stuff like that is possible. He has 2 big problems. One is that he has no real urgency on the feet. So even when he wins a fight, it's like, well, he won, I guess, but there's no like massive distinction, which is why like sometimes he goes to split decision, even though he technically clearly won. It just feels so anticlimactic that one judge feels otherwise, basically. The other problem is that when he gets taken down, if he cannot get up easily, he'll kind of be like, I'll just give up the round. Like, it's been multiple times now where he gets taken down or someone takes his back and he's like, oh well, and just stays there the entire round and gives it up. So with Basharat, who is going to be shooting those takedowns and on the feet is relatively technical himself, the Basharat is kind of like a karate-style striker, but without the intensity, basically. He kind of uses the movement. He's going to slide out of range, then try to counter with the right hands. Relatively good defensively, well-rounded. His kicks are decent. His striking is nothing dangerous, but it's enough that, like, even if you put him in a kickboxing match, he could probably outpoint to solid amounts of bantamweights on the roster. His wrestling is mostly fundamental control. He'll shoot the double leg, try to just get you down from there. He's okay with chaining it. It's nothing special, but it's very fundamentally sound, and because of that, it's hard to, like, really punish anything in it. He will try to chase the rear naked choke or arm triangle if it's given to him, but he's not one of those guys who's going to like risk losing a position to chase a submission. Like he's perfectly content to have like 4 minutes of control time and like attempt a few pitter patter strikes. So in this matchup, with Gutierrez not having urgency to get up and Basharat not having urgency to let someone get up, we probably just have a control-heavy decision for Basharat. He probably gets one takedown a round, keeps it there the entire round. Pretty simple. So I'm taking Basharat by 30-27 decision. Maybe he finds a finish, but I don't think so. It should probably be a decision. Basharat ceiling. I would need to see fight-ending ability from him to think that he has a crazy ceiling, because if he keeps decisionating these guys, eventually he's going to find one who's just too dangerous. Like we kind of saw it in the fight with Hugo, where Hugo should have gotten smoked that fight, but almost snuck out a decision because the few moments he had were almost enough to take the fight with how like little damage Basharat was doing. So if he was to fight like an actually decent version of Hugo, I think he probably loses that unless he's dramatically improved. Okay, Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos. So Macy Chiasson started as a Muay Thai striker, over time kind of evolved into more of a wrestler who will strike on the side because she's naturally big, naturally good at the wrestling at this weight class, to say the least, because she kind of is a featherweight who's fighting at bantamweight and somehow makes it. So yeah, so she's able to just bully most of these girls down, control them there. She had that weird loss to Irene Aldana, if you guys remember it, where she got like up kicked to the liver and then kind of just her body stopped functioning, which makes sense because it was a liver kick, but just none of us had seen anything like that before, unless you guys have seen something I have not. She didn't make it. Oh, did she miss weight? I didn't check the final results. Okay, that's funny. Anyways, Yana Santos is a pure striker. She will kind of just use movement on the outside, dance around, and try to use a bunch of volume. She's not dangerous whatsoever, but her footwork is fairly fundamental, and when she is on, she's relatively good at just outpointing. Yes, she missed weight. Okay. Is the fight still on? If the fight's not on, I don't need to break this down, but so fight's still on? Okay. Yeah, well, basically, Yana Santos is pretty good in rounds 1 and 2. In round 3, she fades extremely heavily, which is why in her last fight, I said Miesha Tate would win by round 3 submission, I think I said. And we almost got that. Miesha Tate was taking over in round 3, couldn't quite find the finish, and she lost the first 2 rounds, so of course she ended up losing the decision. Macy Chiasson is kind of, I mean, she's not as good a wrestler as Miesha Tate is probably, like technically speaking, but she's much bigger than Miesha Tate, and she has much more danger striking. So I feel like Chiasson will get the takedown probably at least in round 2 and round 3, even though she may not get it in round 1, and she's a lot less lost on the feet. So she can compete, set up the takedowns a lot better. So I am taking Chiasson by decision. I think I said 29-28 in my prediction. It could also be a 30-27 if she gets takedowns earlier than I was expecting, but she should be the relatively clear favorite in my opinion because she actually has a full kit and she doesn't gas hard in round 3 like Santos does. Okay. Soriano versus Veretennikov. So Soriano is a Division 3 All-American, I believe, and he came into the UFC as a heavy wrestler initially. Found out he had knockout power and then kind of became a little bit less predictable because sometimes he would just strike instead of like trying to use his actual base skill set. But he does have a very strong left hand. His striking is a little bit one-dimensional. It is just land the big left hand, but it is fast and efficient and so on. He moved down a weight class 2 fights ago, and then we did see him return to the wrestling a bit and control basically the entire fight against Baeza. So that is kind of encouraging in terms of like, okay, he's actually going to use his kit properly. Veretennikov is a reasonably okay striker. He's not always the most technical, and he has very, very bad fight IQ, but he'll throw a variety of strikes. He likes to keep it purely on the feet. He shoots takedowns kind of as a formality. Like, his takedowns are terrible. But like he'll throw spinning stuff on the feet. He's best kind of just throwing hooks in the pocket, honestly speaking. Like the spinning stuff is kind of a waste because I don't think I've ever seen him land it. But technically you do have to be aware of it because, I mean, I guess maybe one day it could land. If Soriano isn't... Okay, so Veretennikov, okay, let me go back to this. Veretennikov has gotten taken down by anyone with half a will to take you down. So Prado has basically had like a 0% takedown accuracy before the Veretennikov fight, and that's not for lack of trying. Prado has shot a lot of takedowns. The only one he got was one where he technically was credited with a takedown against Jake Matthews, and he barely had control. Jake got up very easily. Against Veretennikov, he looked like an all-American wrestler. He just shot a takedown, got him down, controlled him. The only reason why Prado lost that is because he was like jumping for weird submissions. Like he tried to jump for a triangle. He had the back, he tried to jump at triangle, and then later he was on the wrong side for an arm triangle. So he tried to jump all the way over and then lost control there. So Prado could have easily had that win, and Soriano is a much better wrestler than Prado. So I think this fight is relatively simple in that sense. All Soriano has to do, shoot a few takedowns, probably one per realm, get the fight down, don't do anything stupid, you win a decision, or you TKO him on the ground. Soriano could even chin him on the feet with how low fight IQ Veretennikov is, but I do think more likely is like another of the control heavy decisions here. Thoughts on parlaying Basharat sub? I would not parlay a long shot like that personally. Okay, since we just got through early prelims, I'll answer a few questions quickly. How would Basharat versus Wellmaker Topuria go? He has a much better chance against Wellmaker than Topuria, in my opinion, because Wellmaker, I mean, we haven't really seen his ground game, and Wellmaker's footwork is a bit questionable. Topuria is a little bit too well-rounded for him, in my opinion. Islam versus JDM. I already answered that like 3 times. So just go back for that one if you want to see that. What was your reaction to Magny beating Matthews? I was not surprised given that Matthews like hard adrenaline dumped in round 1. I do hope it is overturned. He did appeal it, so we'll see what happens there. How does Usman do against Paddy? And I assume that means BSD. He loses to both. He gets smoked by both. Justice for Jake Matthews. Yeah, agreed. He got the sub in my opinion, but it should at least be a no contest. Unranked guys you're excited for? Good question. I'm sure there are some, I just can't think of any off the top of my head. Will Canelo Hands make it back to the title now? Alright, we'll go on to the prelims quickly. Oh, before I go into the prelims, I have to remember to do this, so someone remind me every time. So if you guys are betting on this card, I do have a betting service, and we are doing extremely well. We are up over 70 units in the last 2 weeks, and over, I believe, 250 units on the year now. So the link is in the description if you guys want to sign up. Basically, the sign-up process is once you log in, submit your payment information, so on. It links you to the Discord. We have all the tools in the Discord, and we have a great community there. So if you guys want to sign up, I hope to see you guys there. Do you think Brady beats Shavkat? I would lean Brady against Shavkat most likely, but I'm not confident. Does Moreno beat Tyra? Unfortunately, probably, well, okay, I like both of them, so I'm not going to say unfortunately, but yeah, I don't think Moreno does at this point. The betting tools go to chat, it's not a joke. I appreciate the endorsement. Are you going to live stream this card? Probably not. Once like the Paramount deal starts, I'll probably start doing fight companions for pay-per-views, because then everyone can kind of be at the same place since you don't have to pay for the card. But I do want to do it for fight nights as the year goes along. Predictions for Brady versus Morales. I'd probably lean Brady. Do you think Ian Gary can become champ? I don't think he can become champ. I think he'll probably hover around the 1 to 3 range in terms of contender ranking for a while, because he has the fight IQ and a lot of the technique. He just doesn't really have that much talent, in my opinion. Did you already answer Usman versus Hughes questions? I did, but if you have a specific question, go ahead. Greetings, everyone. Hey, Bennett. Hello, William. Gautier versus Joe Pyfer would be insane. Yes, it would. I would definitely lean Pyfer there, though, because he's a lot less stiff in his technique, in my opinion. Toughest challenge for Islam at welterweight. I do think that is JDM. Fury doesn't have the raw attributes and built difference to be a champion. Yeah, I agree there. We're not watching on Paramount. We want pay-per-view back. Yeah. Alright, we'll go on to the prelims after I drink some water. Second. Alright, Patchy Mix versus Jacob. I don't know how to say his last name, so I'll just call him Jacob. So, I was basically the OG Patchy Mix hater. I thought he absolutely sucked for a very long time, and that's mainly because he got, like, the knockout over Stotts, and everyone started saying, like, oh, he's not just a great grappler, he's an amazing striker also. His striking is terrible. Like, he got the knockout over Stotts. Stotts was never UFC quality in the first place anyway, and I think also that was a not highest percentage chance outcome of that fight. Not that I think Stotts would have won. I do think Mix definitely would have won, but it being by knockout probably does not happen many times out of 10. Mix's footwork is absolutely abysmal. Like, that's why everyone was confused why he looked stuck against, oh god, I'm blanking on names, but you know who I'm talking about. Bautista. Everyone was like, oh, he's inactive and he's not doing anything against Bautista. The reason why he looked like he couldn't do anything against Bautista was because Bautista has UFC level footwork, and he's a top, I think, 10 fighter in terms of footwork. So he can move, he can box. So yeah, you're not just going to wing wild shots and catch him. You're not going to be able to set up a takedown if you do not set anything up properly with your hands, or at least like a chain wrestler or something like that. So there was no chance that Mix was going to win that fight because he just doesn't have the footwork necessary to do so. Footwork is a prerequisite to being at a certain level of fighter, in my opinion. In terms of his grappling, yes, if he can get you to the ground, he is very dangerous on your back. Even if he's not on your back, right? He'll transition to your back fairly easily. So if he can initiate the grappling properly, he is an extraordinarily dangerous fighter. It's just, the reality is, in UFC, that is not enough. Like, even if you look at guys like Khabib, right? Like, their footwork, while not my favorite, was very effective in terms of what they were trying to do, in that it would set up the chain wrestling sequence, would eventually get them to the fence, and then get them down. Actually doesn't have anything like that. That being said, in this fight with Jacob, so Jacob's fights are mainly at KSW, and okay, so Jacob is also a grappler himself, but he does have a semi-competent stand-up game. He'll throw a lot of teeps. Like, he's trying to pressure forwards constantly and teep to both, like, exhaust you and push you back and such. When he enters the pocket, he tends to do it with a 1-2, and then he kind of wings hooks in the pocket there. His biggest weakness in terms of stand-up, besides his predictability in spamming teeps, is the fact that when he enters the pocket with the 1-2, he's very vulnerable right after that, and he has gotten dropped there a few times. So there are, like, very predictable holes in his stand-up that you can exploit if you've watched any tape on him whatsoever. His grappling is more so opportunistic, because his takedowns are not spectacular. He'll kind of just crash into the pocket and then be like, oh, I'm just going to try to go down for a leg now in the most projected way possible. Or he'll just dive for something in the open. He'll dive for a leg lock, he'll jump guillotine, etc. So, because he's so used to have a grappling advantage, he does do some weird things that I do believe a fighter like Patchy's probably going to be able to exploit. So, I said that I would not take Patchy against any UFC level bantamweight. I don't think Jacob is a UFC level bantamweight, because I think that Jacob will probably give his back in weird transitions and do things that you just can't do against a semi-competent grappler. So, Patchy will probably establish decent position and either sub him or be able to hold him to a decision here. I hate that I have to pick Patchy Mix ever again, but I do think there's a very high chance he wins this unless Jacob made massive improvements since his last KSW fight. Grappling doesn't matter if you can't set up the takedowns to use it. Yeah, exactly. If I'm adding Basharat to my parlay, should I do money line or decision? I mean, it depends on your risk tolerance. The odds are definitely better by decision, but if you're, like, trying to get a guaranteed parlay, then you don't necessarily want to add methods. What do you think of Cheeto's footwork? I don't love Cheeto's footwork, but it's not nearly as bad as Patchy's. Cheeto is a little bit static, but he's good in knowing when and where to move with the little movement. So it's not like abysmal like Patchy's is. What was your pick for the Edmund fight? We're not on that yet. Umar versus Bautista. Unfortunately, I have to favor Umar, but I'll be heavily rooting for Bautista. I've seen better head movement on Mount Everest, valid. Hey, Oracle, what did you think about Hughes versus Usman today? I had a 3-2 either way, but they should have absolutely taken a point for the numerous fouls. So, yeah, I didn't watch it live. I watched it back later, and I thought it was a very clear 3-2 for Hughes, if not a 4-1 for Hughes, because I don't see how you can give rounds 2, 3, or 5 to Usman, and that's not even talking about the fouls. Like, Hughes just did considerably more damage in each of those rounds. Thoughts on Prime TJ's footwork? It was solid. Geez, why do you hate Umar? Because he's a crybaby and never shuts up and complains about everything. Do you think Merab struggles against Cory? We'll get to that fight. Alright. So, a contingency regarding this fight. I don't know why it was moved to a catchweight. From what I've heard, it was on Santos' side. But I don't know if it was like he had an injury and he couldn't make weight or something weird happened. So it could affect the fight. And I don't know how it will affect the fight. So just saying that. So Daniel Santos is a Shooto box fighter and kind of fights like a Shooto box fighter, but he's a much better boxer than most of the Shooto box fighters are. So he will move, like, his head movement is spectacular. We saw it a lot in his last fight. And he's able to put together long combinations where he's slipping and ducking shots like mid-combo and then rips right afterwards continuously. So his boxing is pretty beautiful to watch in all honesty, and seems to get better as the fight goes along and he starts making reads. He has started mixing the takedowns, which is good because he does have the full skill set, and it makes him a lot more dangerous because, unlike Patchy, he's setting up everything he does. Yu is a karate-style striker, and unlike Basharat, who's also a karate-style striker, Yu has the one-shot knockout power and is trying to use it. So Yu is basically, every time you do anything, is trying to look for a counter with a big shot, or when he's on the offense, he's going to throw like big spinning back kicks, he's going to throw big shots going forwards, and so on. He's basically just always looking for a big shot, no matter if he's countering offense, moving forwards, backwards, etc. Yu's biggest problem, in my opinion, is that he's so one-shot dependent. Because his skill set is spectacular, right? He has good offensive wrestling, he has good defensive wrestling, he has like good striking fundamentals, he has good power, he seemingly has good cardio, and so on. The problem is that if one shot is not putting his opponent out, then he's just not getting a finish usually, which is why he's gone to decisions against very low-level fighters. He will hurt them in the fight, but if they survive the one shot, well, okay, they just back off and then it happens again, and then they back off and it happens again. I think that's going to be a problem against Santos, because if you're just throwing one shot against Santos, maybe you can catch him, maybe you can hurt him. But if he slips that shot, he's going to come back with a 7-punch combo, and he's going to keep pressuring you and so on. And if you're not putting anything out there that's going to stop him from continuously comboing, well, he's just going to go downhill as he starts making reads and getting his momentum. So I'm going to pick Daniel Santos by decision here. He could even potentially find a finish, but I do think it will be decision because I do believe Yu is tough from what I've seen. I would not be the most shocked in the world if you found a big shot and was able to either win a round off it or put Santos away. But I am surprised so many people are on Yu here because everything we have seen has favored Santos, in my opinion. Umar suffers from entitled rich kid syndrome. Yeah, pretty much. Yu by decision. I mean, it's possible. I just don't personally think he's going to find those moments against someone who's much higher level than Jekka and Santos. Everyone on Yu because of his last KO. Yeah, but it's like Jekka makes anyone look good. Jekka made Wilson look good. Weston Wilson sub Jekka. Like, for context, that's who we're talking about. So I don't know why people are putting weight on a KO against Jeka. Like, I hate to constantly be raggy on Jeka. He seems like a good guy, but Jeka has not had good results in the UFC. What do you think Usman and Hughes level is at, like in the UFC? Does Hughes beat Rybovics? I don't think either of them are top 10, and arguably neither of them is ranked. Just joined in. How confident are you in Brahimaj? I'm not crazy confident. I'm favoring him, though. I think he has more tools to win. Santos versus Jiří looks like a lighter version of Rupees versus Lontop with the whole catch weight thing. Except Santos is a lot more skilled than Lontop, in my opinion. Prime Khabib or Gamrot? I'd take Khabib to win a kind of lackluster decision. Okay, as I was saying with the big favorite fights, I'm not really going to break them down. This is an execution. We all know this. Gautier, very powerful on the feet. No real ground game, but he has okay takedown defense, so getting him there is not the easiest. He has a solid sprawl and such. On the feet, he has relatively technical boxing. It is just a bit stiff to the point that someone who is very skilled in striking could probably punish it. But Vines is not very skilled in the striking. Vines kind of just likes to get in the pocket and brawl. He'll shoot takedowns, but he'll kind of just grind for them, and I don't even know what he's going for. It's like, okay, you lowered your level, but you're not trying to move them. You're not trying to get your hands locked. Like, what are we doing here? Vines has gotten chinned 3 times in round 1, I believe, before. So he's getting chinned in round 1 again. Like, if Gautier by first round TKO is anything better than like minus 250, and you're betting, probably take it. That's all I'm going to say about this fight. Dead Man Walking, yeah, exactly. Under 1.5, minus 650, beautiful odds. Yeah, exactly. It's like, for once, pretty much anything is probably worth that. Do you think Vines crumbles or gets put out cold? I have a theory he will just cover and try to get less punishment to get the bag without getting CT. Yeah, I mean, we could see him kind of just like quit and cover up very quickly. It's not even close to minus 250. Yeah, I mean, even if it's minus 300, minus 400, I mean, it's going to happen probably. Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov. So, Abus Magomedov has the worst cardio I've ever seen in my life. For a professional, I should clarify. There are fighters who are like first round or bust, where they'll go out there, strike heavy, and then they'll kind of gas out because they struck heavy in round 1, and then if they haven't finished you, then they'll slow down and get finished. Abus is the only guy I've seen throw like 5 strikes in a round, and then gas out anyways. His fights against Michel Pereira, and even Kyle Barajo, like, what is happening here? How are you winning a slow point fight against Pereira, not have gotten hit like pretty much once, and then you're still like struggling to breathe in round 3? It was incredible to watch. What about Shamil, the real deal? The real Mil Gaziev? Shamil has better cardio than Abus somehow. But anyways, so yeah, Abus is a kickboxer first, right? He'll use the teeps a lot. He has decent hands and so on. If he needs to, he'll try to set up the takedown. When he gets it to the ground, he doesn't really have any danger there unless you're completely gassed. He's kind of just going to go control heavy, get a few punches off, whatever, win the round off of it and so on. Everyone thought he was a world beater because he knocked out Strohsfus with the front kick to the face in round 1. But then after that, like, he hasn't even looked that dangerous in round 1. Like, even though his boxing is okay, it's not spectacular. Like, his hands aren't that powerful. And his boxing is clean, but not like, oh, this guy's going to be a champion because he has spectacular boxing. Like, everything that Abus does is kind of just mediocre. He's I can't even say he's well-rounded because his cardio is so bad, though. But other than that, he's like the well-rounded good at nothing. Pyfer, we all know. Terrible attitude, incredible power. He will knock you out if he lands clean. He probably has the most power that weight class has ever seen. his fight against Marc-Andre Barriault aged very well, because even though Strauss knocked him out also in exchange, like we saw Mab take a lot of damage against Shara and be okay. So evidently he's not like an incredibly chinny guy or anything. So Pyfer is probably going to try to land the jab overhand. That is pretty much his go-to. His cross or two is not really a cross. It's kind of a similar situation to Jiří. Well, he'll throw it with some curve in it no matter what he does. I am thinking there may be some merit to throwing your backhand like that, because if you don't arc it much, but you arc it a little, you catch the side of the chin, which can do more damage in terms of knocking someone out. But you don't have the disadvantage of like, oh, we're going to do a big arcing shot that's easier to see and evade. So that may be a very legitimate strategy for maximizing power, even though it does take a bit of speed off of it. Pyfer his only real weakness is the cardio. We did see him slow down in round 3 against Kelvin, and of course he slowed down against Jack Hermanson, then eventually lost that decision. But in round 1, he is so incredibly dangerous that I don't think it's going to matter unless he's fighting a very high-level fighter. Abus isn't going to be able to dance around the outside and avoid damage like Jack did. He doesn't have the technical defense, he doesn't really have the ability to just stall out and calf kick and move around and so on. So, Pyfer probably catches Abus, and it's probably... I could see it being in round 2. I could see like, okay, Abus has enough gas in round 1 to be fast enough that his defense is fundamental. But once he leaves round 1, his defense is so much worse. Like his guard gets labored, his reaction time is just terrible. To the point that Pyfer, who is still relatively fresh in round 2 usually, and able to put people out, will probably either find the left hook or the overhands. So I do think Pyfer should take a relatively easy knockout here, and I do want to see Pyfer against tougher competition. I have a Merab and Abus mixture gas tank. I mean, I think that is the average gas tank, but yes. Abus with any level of cardio would be a mythical fighter, valid. Abus is Caio Borralho without cardio. Kind of, yeah. Joe Pyfer by Angry Man's Elbow, valid. Pyfer not taping up his hands going to be his downfall? It's possible. I mean, if you clench your hands enough when you throw, it doesn't really matter, though. Pyfer only has mentality issue. If he proves his skills a bit, he'll become champion. It's possible. He needs to improve his cardio also, but he has, like, actual ability. How did Abus get to sub Pereira on round 3, though? That's pretty impressive. I didn't watch the fight. If you watched the fight, it was not impressive. Basically, Pereira showed some like the worst fight IQ possible. He had Abus rocked multiple times, and he started spamming spinning elbows, and then got taken down because he seemed desperate to find a spinning elbow knockout. And once he got taken down a few times, he gassed very, very badly as well. And it was basically just two fighters on 1% fighting. And because of that, once Abus got like a takedown off of a stupid thing that Pereira threw in round 3, he was able to find the sub. It was not a good performance, trust me. After what Dawkins did to Pereira, it's not a great look for Abus. Yeah, exactly. Why do you think Pyfer struggled in moments against Kelvin Gastelum? Well, because he gassed. Pyfer was doing great until round 3 when he slowed down, and then he was like, oh, well, I was just trying to take his head off for 2 rounds. I have nothing left in the tank. Who's the hardest hitting middleweight of all time, in my opinion, Zalal? It might be. I mean, it's really hard to say, in all honesty. It could be Pyfer as well. But I understand what you're saying with UL. It's possible it's him as well. That explains it then, yeah. I don't want Pyfer to visit me in my sleep, so I'm going to say he's the best boxer, wrestler, and fighter on Earth, valid. Pereira gets a spinning elbow K and just fumbled the Abus fight. That pissed me off. Yeah, valid. Henderson had stupid power. That is true. I'm Romero versus Hamzat. I'm taking Romero there. Honestly, rewatch the fight. Kelvin Pyfer was a closer fight. I mean, if Kelvin hadn't gotten hurt multiple times in the first 2 rounds, then yes. I mean, in the second half of round 2 and round 3, he picked it up, but he was just way too behind on damage in round 2 for it to be like close. But I get what you mean. All right. Josh Emmett versus Yusuf Zalal. So Josh Emmett is the definition of an overhand merchant. He basically has nothing else. He is fast enough, though, that he can set it up relatively well, and it can land, it can drop people. Even though, it's funny, people think of Emmett as a knockout artist, he does not have many knockouts in the UFC. He has dropped people a fair number of times, but like let's look at how skewed his fight history is in terms of that. Like, so he has 1, 2, 3, 4 knockouts off a fair number of fights, but dropped him 4 times. Okay, he got the knockouts here. Dropped him once, couldn't get the knockout. Knockout fine, knockout fine. Dropped him twice, couldn't get the knockout. Dropped him once, couldn't get the knockout. So Emmett has an issue with the fact that he's so overhand reliant, makes it so that even if he hurts someone, even if he drops them, there is no follow-up. So if they're not out cold, he's not finishing them, which is why he never did well at the high levels. Like, Emmett is one of those fighters who people don't think about as a waste of talent, but in my opinion, he is, because he has a lot of the natural attributes. He hits super hard, he's super fast, he somehow is able to do that for 5 rounds, but he just never changed his game to do anything except spam overhands. He has decent wrestling offensively. Defensively, it's okay. We haven't really seen his submission defense because against Yair, he was pretty much knocked out by the time that happened anyways. Youssef Zalal is a very elusive fighter in general, which of course looks super annoying at times. So Zalal will use the long jab on the outside. He'll come in for quick combos, but then he'll make sure that when you're throwing, he is backing off, which is technically good distance management. But he kind of overuses it to the point that you can have situations like Cater round 3 where he's just running away. His head movement is spectacular, though. If you watch his Topuria fight, like, the way he just, without hesitation, was dodging Topuria's like left hook, right overhand combos was very impressive. So Youssef's defense, if anything, is actually underrated. Offensively, with the striking, he's probably not going to do that much damage. His punches are relatively light, but he will look up for knees up the middle if you are shooting. And of course, most of his striking is just to set up the takedowns. If he can get the takedown or off balance you, he is trying to work to the back, climb up, and find the rear naked choke constantly. This is effectively as close as you can make to a tailor-made matchup for a fighter. Zalal is incredibly defensively responsible, and it only has one technique you have to be aware of. So Zalal is just going to be able to dodge the overhand repetitively and then continue to punish. I have an unpopular opinion about this fight, which is that I think Zalal can probably find a finish here. Because with how predictable Emmett is, once Zalal figures out, like, okay, I have his timing, he's not going to hit me with the overhand, I can dodge this very easily. He's going to be like, okay, can I use his overhand timing to get to a shot? Can I use his overhand timing to get to the back now? And then once he starts doing that, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to get into advantageous positions and look to end the fight. So Zalal, knowing that he needs a finish after the last fight and wanting to get a finish to get a potential title shot, in his opinion, he's not getting a title shot, but he thinks he's getting a title shot with the finish. I think that he is going to really actively go for the submission here, and I do think that he will find it. So I'm saying that Zalal is going to get a round 2 rear naked choke here, and I think he's going to make it look fairly easy. And yes, at minus 425, it makes sense, but I am surprised that everyone's so confident in Zalal's decision when this is exactly like the easiest fight for him possible. What's crazy is that German Stevens put Emmett out, which is crazy because Ilya couldn't even do that. Yeah, so I mean, it was a different type of situation in which they were just more actively trading in the pocket. With Ilya, Emmett kind of knew he couldn't be that reckless, so it was a bit of a difference there. How much can you train? Power? Is it mostly genetic, muscle, body type? It's a combo. There is natural power, of course, but you can definitely tune your body to generate more power, and a lot of it is kinetic chain. It's like using your body's power most efficiently. Some people are naturally a little bit better at it than others, but it is definitely something that can be improved. Emmett is training with Dillashaw. I mean, Emmett's also like 45 years old, so it doesn't really matter at this point. I'm exaggerating, but I think he is getting somewhat close to 40. Who wins, John versus Zalal? It should be John, but it would be, I'm not going to say an interesting fight because Zalal would not go for much in that fight, in my opinion. It would be kind of boring, but it would be a competitive fight, let's say. Zalal has the most serious case of pillow hands at featherweight. I agree with that. I don't think he's going to get a TKO, but I do think that is a good matchup for him to find a submission. Okay, Jiří versus Rountree. So I broke this down in the reel. I assume most of you guys have seen that. If not, I will give a brief summary of this, and then you guys can ask questions, because I know some of you guys do have questions about this fight. Everyone knows who these two fighters are, so I'm not going to break them down. I'm just going to go straight into how they match up. So, Rountree on the front foot, well, on front foot and back foot, he uses the lead hook a lot. Now, the reason why this actually kind of confuses me is because he's a southpaw. As a southpaw, you're typically fighting orthodox fighters. The lead hook is not the most efficient weapon to use. So I don't know why he started doing it, but he does stick with it, and I mean, he's made it work for the most part, so I guess it is what it is. But he's mainly going to use 2-3s on the front foot. He'll blast body kicks and so on. He doesn't really throw head kicks, which is interesting. But yeah, he'll go to the body and leg as much as possible, of course. The problem with how he's fighting is that when he throws pretty much anything, whether it's his 1-2 or his 3-2, he really likes to extend into the cross. And when you're extending into the cross that far, you're leaving yourself very open to a lot of things. Like, one, it makes it very easy to shoot a takedown, which is why Cutelaba absolutely mauled him. Cutelaba just waited for Rountree to step in and was like, okay, I'll just shoot under this now. Rountree also has absolutely nothing off of his back. And maybe that has been improved to some extent, but he was so far the last time he got taken down that I can't imagine that it's spectacular now. So if Jiří wants to go to his wrestling, it should be a fairly easy path to victory here. The other thing is, of course, if Jiří is going to slide out of the way of the left straight, he could potentially either time a spinning elbow, like he did against Reyes, of course, so that was on the front foot, or he could, of course, just lean away from it like he did against Hill, and then come back with the cross and counter hook. So the lunging is way too, like, I know Jiří doesn't have crazy game planning or anything, but I feel like it's not a terribly hard thing to game plan for here. On the back foot, which what should happen because Jiří does like to push forward somewhat recklessly, Rountree's also going to be very lost because he's really just going to look for the big right hook counter, and when you only have one shot like that, I do think it's going to be relatively hard to land. So Jiří on the front foot, as long as he's not getting like ridiculously greedy for absolutely no reason, should be able to just pretty much bully Rountree there. Like, even Reyes, who is spectacular on his back foot, was getting pieced up by Prochazka, like just charging forwards. So I do think that because Jiří has been hittable in the past, people do kind of disrespect him. Now, that being said, you can only ever be so confident with a Jiří fight because it is going to be chaotic, most likely. If it's not chaotic, I would be shocked. But that being said, I think 7, 8, maybe even 9 times out of 10, Jiří should win this, especially if he uses like any game planning whatsoever. A lot of people are saying like, oh, well, Rountree is just going to throw calf kicks, and Jiří doesn't deal with calf kicks well. But the problem with that whole train of thought is that, first of all, the calf kicks only worked against Hill because Hill is also a southpaw and can't fight orthodox. Jiří can fight orthodox here. And if Rountree is throwing the inside calf kick, which he can try to, it's going to be a lot easier to check, and also it's kind of going to be impossible if Jiří's pushing him backwards here. So I don't see the calf kick being very effective. Jiří also has taken a lot of calf kicks and been able to keep fighting. Like, Rakic hit him with like probably 30, 40 calf kicks, and he just kept fighting anyways. So again, while there's always chances Jiří gets chinned by something, I think there's a pretty solid chance that he wins this fight. I forget if I said second or third round knockout in my predictions, but here I'll say second round knockout via like an overhands, but it could definitely be like ground and pound or even like a submission on the ground. Jiří by decision though. I mean, it's possible, but I think that Jiří hits hard enough that he should be able to finish this. Rountree weird because he looks better against other southpaws than orthodox. Yeah, exactly. Got a feeling someone's going to die here. Yeah, someone's probably going to get put out cold. Close scar tissue looks terrible. Do you think Jiří can get a doctor stoppage TKO? He could, but I think he'd probably put out Rountree before that even happened. How do you think Jiří and Khalil would do at heavyweight? I mean, Khalil would be tiny at heavyweight. Even at light heavyweight, he kind of looks small in all honesty. At heavyweight, he would be teeny. Jiří, the problem is, again, he doesn't cut much weight. But if he could like bulk up properly, he would have a better chance, in my opinion. Is there any worry that Jiří having a proper team round is going to take his wild, chaotic X factor? It's always a possibility, but I think that he is enough of a... I don't think he's a walker where like he's just going to listen to exactly what his team says and ignore his instincts. I think he will probably kind of combine them, but it's always a possibility. He'll have some of the worst footwork in the UFC. I don't know how he's champion. That is true, yes. Jiří's also tough outside of Alex, usually powers through it. Yeah, exactly. But looks to have a lot of scar tissue. Yep. Do you think most fighters / coaches are operating on your level of analysis? No, I think we've seen otherwise, unfortunately. I think Jiří with a PhD is going to maul Khalil. Fair. I feel like Khalil relies on his opponent respecting him and his power. If Jiří Tylenol maxes and pressures him, he will crumple. Valid. Maybe he'll land that knee like he tries to every fight. Yeah, he could land the flying knee. Y'all do not know pre-Achilles tear. The molehill, don't disrespect. I think he was definitely better before Achilles tear, but his footwork has never been spectacular. How do you think Jiří deals with Khalil's blitz? I mean, you could shoot under it, he could go for the spinning elbow, he could go for a flying knee, there's a lot of options. Khalil or Reyes? I'd probably take... actually, that's a good question. I would probably take Reyes, but if Khalil just sat there and waited, it might be a problem for Reyes. Khalil's the type of fighter to be satisfied with, oh, he's so tough performance. Yeah, that is true. The reason Topuria couldn't knock out Emmett is because Emmett broke his orbital against Stevens and subsequently got a titanium orbital, which improved his chin a lot. I don't know if that would improve your chin, because he still got kind of destroyed, but he also, like, again, was just a lot more careful in the fight. How do you see Jiří versus Ulberg going? I would favor Jiří. I think he could overwhelm, like... Because Ulberg counters very predictably with the lead hook, and there's ways around that if you know what's coming. And, like, Jiří's going to go forwards a lot more confidently than Reyes did, to say the least. Why do you think most fighters neglect basic analysis and game planning? Because they just don't do the... Fighters like to do the heavy training work, right? Then they kind of neglect the simple things that make them better, because it's not, like, what they enjoy doing. So as a fighter, you get a massive advantage if you're willing to do the stuff that you don't enjoy doing. Alright, we'll go on to Merab versus Cory. Again, everyone knows these fighters. I'm not going to break them down too much. I think the interesting thing about this fight is that everyone is kind of, or not, I'm not going to say everyone, because I've seen some people saying otherwise now. A lot of people, though, are basically saying Cory has absolutely no chance here, which I don't agree with, because Cory is technically sound pretty much everywhere. There's no skill in which he's lacking in. He has good offensive striking, he has good defensive striking, he has good offensive grappling, he has good defensive grappling. Does Merab probably win this? I will say outright, yes, I am going to pick Merab by decision. But Cory could find the flying knee, he could find the spinning kick, he could find, like, a lot of things, because I don't know how many of you guys saw the reel I did on this, but Merab's entries are extremely predictable. He has, like, I broke it down so well in the reel, I don't even want to say anything about it here, because I'm going to explain it a lot worse. But basically, you could tell by how he comes in exactly how he's going to shoot and when he's going to shoot. So based on basically how he throws his jab. If Cory has picked up on that, which is possible because Cory does study his opponents a lot more than most fighters do, there is a definitive chance that Cory has figured out a way to punish it. It could include the flying knee, it could include other things, and so on. If Cory had power in his hands, I would pick him to win this fight. Like, relatively confidently, actually. The problem is that for Cory to hurt Merab, he is going to have to land the flying knee or get, like, a heel hook or something. Like, Cory doesn't really have any other way of, like, actually diminishing Merab's ability to continue fighting. So, chances are, even though Cory's going to land stuff, it's just not going to matter, because he's not going to be able to cause enough of a reaction to get the round, or, like, slow Merab down, and then Merab will just keep doing his thing, and even if Cory has some moments, Merab will take the later rounds, and so on. So, I do think that Merab will take a fairly competitive decision, in which Cory is hitting Merab, probably draws some blood, maybe hits a good elbow and busts up his eye a bit, but just can't do enough to either finish the fight or, like, steal rounds definitively. What are common things fighters don't enjoy? Tape study, game planning in general, like envisioning how a fight's going to go, thinking about how to deal with certain things your opponent might do, flow sparring, stuff like that. Merab wears heels. Honestly, I think Cory could find a slick sub. I'm not going to rule it out, but Merab is going to prepare for leg locks extensively. And I don't see Cory hitting any submission besides a leg lock here. And when you know a leg lock is coming, it's very hard to hit it in modern MMA. I would say Cory should only use the leg locks to stand up. Like, if you get on your back, you can get to the leg, then use that to either sweep or force Merab to disengage a little bit, use that to explode back to your feet and continue from there. But you can't really crank on the leg lock against someone who knows how to defend it. Cory's going to freeze up trying to think of what to do. Maybe instincts take over and Cory finds a knee up the middle. I don't think he's going to freeze up like last time, but I just don't think he's going to have the answer. Could elbows from Sandhagen similar to the Song fight affect anything? That seemed to be the answer against not having enough power to get respect last time. The problem is that Merab isn't just going to stand in front of you like Song will. So Cory was able to line up the elbows a lot more easily in that fight than he will be here. Merab's going to be moving around, constantly shooting, constantly like ducking into things and stuff. Thoughts on Merab by late rounds TKO? Merab says he's going to find a TKO. I don't believe him. If he does, I mean, that would be amazing, like, as for his legacy and even just to watch. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to TKO Cory, honestly speaking. How do DDP and Khamzat do against Reyes? I think Reyes could beat Chimaev just because of how good his takedown defense is, but it's a very theoretical could. Like, I don't know. There might be too much of a skill difference weight class-wise as well. DDP I would take, though. To be honest, Cory has 0 leg lock wins, so I don't see him getting one here. I would say the last fight was a leg lock win, and the other thing is he really messed up TJ with a leg lock. So even though he might not like officially have leg lock wins, I do feel like he has done considerable damage with leg locks before. But I still don't see him getting one here either, yeah. Fighters don't game plan like it's their job. I can't imagine going through a career that blind. Agreed. Is the conventional leg lock or a 50-50 leg lock very different? I'm not the best person to explain the intricacies of leg locks, but how you 50-50 is different than the actual, like, heel hook position. So 50-50ing is a different, I'm not going to say it's a different subject matter, but it's like a different intricacy. Cory versus Umar in a rematch. I think Cory could figure out Umar a lot more easily than he could figure out Merab, to be honest. So I might take Cory in an Umar rematch. Merab also has good distance management. Yes, agreed. As an analyst, you get frustrated when fighters have unfair attributes, like Vittori's chin, for example. Sometimes, especially, I tend to more so get frustrated when they don't use them properly. If you have an attribute and you use it properly, well, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do. If you have an attribute and you don't use it properly, it's like, why aren't you using what makes you good? Whitman was screaming for the uppercut against Umar, but Cory wasn't even throwing it. Cory made a lot of mistakes against Umar. Alright, we'll go on to the main event. Ankalaev versus Pereira. You guys have seen my prediction, so I'll say it outright to begin with. I did pick Ankalaev by TKO. Now, the more time goes by, the more I really feel like I'm going to be wrong about this, which would not be a surprise given my recent main event track record, to say the least. I'll explain why in a second. So, we have to go back to their first fight. In their first fight, Alex spent round 1 throwing the calf kicks on the outside, and Ankalaev did nothing except like follow him around and not throw anything. So round 1 went out very easily. Then in round 2, Ankalaev started making the reads and started punishing the kick timings with his hands. Alex kind of just didn't do anything about it. He got caught stance switching, which was a very weird error. So he got caught in a kick combo, which was just like, okay, you're getting too predictable at like the midpoint of the round. Then when he got caught at the end of round 2, it was because he like started stance switching and then kind of just canceled it and then got caught like mid-movement. Now, people are like, oh, Ankalaev almost knocked out Alex. This is going to be an easier fight. Yeah, if you re-watch the actual sequence, it looked more like Alex was off balance than he was actually hurt. Because when you see Alex move right when the round ended, it didn't look like he was rocked or wobbly or anything like that. So I think when he got hit when he was like mid-stand switch and he was squared up, he got knocked backwards and people thought he was rocked, but he was more so off balance. I'm sure it hurt, but I don't think he was as rocked as people want to say that he was. That being said, it was a bad movement, so that definitely showed like very bad boxing tendencies. Then we go into round 3. Round 3 was a very even round and became the swing round of the fight. I thought Alex won because I gave him round 3. Now, a lot of people did not give him round 3 because basically all that landed in round 3 was leg kicks from leg kicks from Alex and body kicks from Ankalaev. Alex landed several more, so I gave him the round based off that. Some people argue that the body strikes are just more significant than leg strikes automatically, so they outweigh the volume. I can see the arguments. Either way, whatever you scored this fight, it was a very close one. Round 4, Ankalaev did nothing except hold him against the fence. And round 5, Alex did not throw much volume, but had good moments with the switch kick to the head and one very powerful jab that made Ankalaev like back up quickly. So the fight was extremely even and basically came down to, I feel like people will misremember how boring the first fight was. Like, nothing happened in the whole fight. And that wasn't just because, like, oh, Ankalaev was holding him against the fence. And, I mean, yeah, round 4 was because of that. But the rest of it was because neither of them wanted to open up with anything. Like, they were both seemingly scared of getting hurt on the feet. So, this fight, I think both of them are going to fight differently in that they're both going to have more urgency to do something because they know how close the first fight was. So I see this fight being a lot more chaotic and having an actual finish before round 4. I said round 2 TKO for Ankalaev. I think it could be a round 2 TKO for either of them. I think that both of them are going to be throwing with knockout intentions, where last time they were like, oh, I'm just going to do damage and then save it for later in the fight, not get taken down on Alex's side, on Ankalaev's side, not get hit by like a big left hook or something, and so on. The reason Ankalaev showed to have better boxing fundamentals, and that is probably going to be true for this fight as well. Like, when you have a kickboxer who established all of their skills with the larger gloves, or even a boxer, it's not even just a kickboxer, they have certain deficits where they don't know how to defend properly with smaller gloves. We've seen that with Adesanya, we're seeing that now with Alex, and so on. It happens with pretty much every kickboxer who comes over. Ankalaev, not having had that experience, his boxing is evolved to small gloves, and he's going to have the proper movement to deal with the offense instead of just relying on blocking and stuff like that and just having quote-unquote pillows on the hands. So, the reason why I still think Alex is live here is because we saw even in round 5, the power discrepancy was absolutely wild. Like, Alex rocked Ankalaev with a head kick through the guard and landed one jab and made him back off very quickly. So even though Ankalaev has the better fundamentals, Alex has the more well-rounded striking set, given that he has the kicks. Not that Ankalaev can't kick, but it's not the same level. And Alex also just has probably twice as much power and ability to end the fight. So Alex probably is just going to need one strike to end the fight. Ankalaev is probably going to need a full combo or something like that, or he'll need like a perfect strike where Alex could probably get like a grazing left hook and drop Ankalaev off of it. So even though I am leaning Ankalaev, and I think that when they come to the center, the superior boxing and the youth and probably the speed at this point is going to favor Ankalaev, and even if like he gets tagged, maybe he finds a takedown and so on because Alex has to overextend. But I'm not confident. I do think that this is a much closer fight than everyone is pretending it is, and either of them could get the finish here. For 135 all day, yeah, that's what I thought. But 3 was close, to be fair. Pereira's gonna KO Ankalaev via overhand. That would be interesting to see. The first fight was so boring, I genuinely couldn't make myself rewatch it and prep for the rematch. Valid. I'm glad someone remembers how terrible the first fight was, yes. Do you think Pereira will adapt the oblique kicks? Do you think has he thrown him any time in the past? I don't think Pereira is going to be throwing oblique kicks, really. What should Alex do to win the rematch? He has to focus very heavily on the jab, in my opinion. So, for Alex's sake, he needed to do a very boxing-heavy camp. So he needs to get closer to Ankalaev's fundamentals in the boxing. And people see clips of Alex like sparring and using a lot of head movement, and they're like, oh, when he gets into the flow, he's very good. And there's some truth in that, right? Like, he has shown some good head movement when he gets into the flow of things, but he tends to be a little bit stiff, and like in live fights when it's not sparring, he needs to be more careful. It's not there as frequently until he gets very comfortable, and he's not going to be that comfortable early in the fight here. As an Alex fan, that was 4-1 Ankalaev. There's no way you can score it 4-1 for Ankalaev. You can score it 3-2 to Ankalaev, and even though I disagree, I won't say that you're like factually wrong, right? Because it becomes subjective. But you cannot score round 5 for Ankalaev. Ankalaev got rocked 2 times in round 5. Pereira was rumored to be injured and sick, and Ankalaev barely managed to squeeze out a clinch fest victory. Yes, but Ankalaev is younger, and of course, the fact that Pereira is going to be more aggressive here could favor Ankalaev as well. So I'm not saying that automatically means that Alex wins the rematch, even though, yeah, it could mean that. We'll find out. As an Ankalaev fan, 5-0 Pereira. How do you see Pereira versus Volkov going? I think Pereira beats him fairly easily, because the difference in skills is just very extreme. 3 was close, but I believe the ankle grabber stole it with the jab. So I've seen people say that, but the jab that, like, quote-unquote rocked Pereira just got knocked back because he was lifting his leg for a calf kick. So I just weight that jab the same as I would weight anything else. He wasn't, like, hurt. He didn't look hurt. And there was nothing, like, that changes it other than landing a normal jab, in my opinion. But it was a close round. Alex needs to time Ankalaev's entries with his jabs, in my opinion. Yeah, he needs to jab a lot. Ankalaev hasn't finished one ranked fighter. He has not, but I think that a lot of fighters end up fighting very passively against him. And I think that when Alex does the same, when Alex does not do the same and is more aggressive here, unlike last time, which I do expect to happen, but who knows, maybe it won't, then it will open up the opportunities for either of them to get the finish. I think Alex should scramble instead of relying on pure takedown defense, because that's what made him so hesitant on the feet. Well, yeah, scrambling is, of course, a last resort, but he should still be more open to risking getting taken down. The problem for Alex, to me, is just he waits way too much. He puts too much reliance and confidence in his power, which is fair. But in matchups like this, where he forces himself to guess, it's bad. Yeah, he needs to be more proactive with his jab and setting things up. Alex needs to mix up head and body kicks, yeah, for sure. So the body kick to the open side to occupy the left hand. I'd say the head kick is better for that, but yeah, same difference. When Alex tried to pressure Magomed, he got teeped to the cage. How does he counter that? He only got teeped to the cage like once, and a lot of that was because he wasn't throwing anything behind his pressure. He was just moving forwards. So he still has to, of course, be putting in something in front of it so that you can't just keep throwing offense against him. Also, what do you think about Pereira shooting on Ankalaev, taking him down? I don't think it's a high percentage move here. I think that if Ankalaev starts like really overextending with his hands, maybe you do that. But I think that it's risking getting reversed against someone who is a better grappler than you. Do you think Ankalaev's a good parlay piece? Who's the best parlay pieces on this card? I will say I don't think Ankalaev is a good parlay piece, because I think this is a close to 50-50 fight. But if you want parlay pieces, just sign up for the my betting service, and we have all of that there. I thought Pereira got wobbled at the end of round 2. Round 2, you could argue that. I don't think he was very wobbled. I think maybe he was a little bit hurt, but I think it was exaggerated by the fact that he fell back into the cage because he was in mid, like, canceled stand switch when he got hit. Bro, you a smart sounding person. Thanks, I think. Unk should shoot for single legs instead of doubles. Ankalaev doesn't really have single legs in his kit, though. Like, hypothetically, sure, but I haven't seen him really shoot good singles before. Alex should focus on jabs and head kicks. Yeah, for sure. How do you see Alex versus Ulberg going if he wins the belt and stays at light heavyweight? It's a close fight in my opinion. I'd have to look at the tape more. Did you see Max Holloway say Alex should use more leg kicks in the rematch? CT has his man on a chokehold. I did not see that, but not the best thing Holloway has said. Anybody that's going to attend this card in person, leave immediately if Poton loses. I'm crashing out. Merab or Ankalaev, pound for pound. Merab for sure. He shot singles on Jan, no. He mainly shot doubles. He may have shot singles to get him to the fence and then gone from there, but he was also desperate to shoot anything in that fight, so he started jumping on stuff that he normally wouldn't. But if you look at the large majority of his of his takedowns, they are double legs. And you got Mavzar or Merab at 145. I take Merab. Consistent technical problem with Alex, which put him in a bad position in round 2 with Ankalaev. He really overfeints to sell with how much power he has. He doesn't have to sell that feint that hard. Fair. I don't think that the round 2 issue was really about feinting, though. I think it was you can't stand switch when someone is right in front of you, and especially you can't just stop your stand switch midway when someone's right in front of you. Round 5 of their last fight showed me that Alex has the methods to win this fight. That's fair. What does Pereira even do if he loses? Push for Tom fight, gets KO'd, then retires. I don't think he could get KO'd against Tom. He definitely could get subbed, but I don't think he would get KO'd. But that would be what he probably should do if he loses this fight. Do you really think Max has CTE? I mean, most fighters who have been around for a while have some level of CTE. So I don't think Max has like crazy CTE. Like his speech is fine, but he probably has some level of it. Best grappling base for MMA? I mean, there's always going to be an argument about it. I would say no-gi Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I guess. But you could argue wrestling for sure. Do you think Pereira should fake being hurt like Lewis and lure Ankalaev into being aggressive? It's a strategy. He could try it. I hadn't thought about that, but it could work. Robert John Silva. That's actually a good question. I'd have to think about that more. Merab versus Pantoja. I would lean Merab, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pantoja won. Ankalaev said he's going to win the heavyweight belt before retiring. What do you think? It's possible. I mean, Ankalaev is a lot more technical than most of the heavyweights. I think that the fact that he's not the most powerful could be an issue at heavyweight, though. I want Ankalaev to win so he can maul Ulberg for what he did to my boy Reyes Vallon. Pantoja and Merab would be a banger fight, agreed. In round 2, Alex feinted a low kick and overdid it, where he was completely square with his really bad boxing guard. I don't think that counts as feinting a low kick, though. Feinting a low kick is like twisting your hips. That's like not a feint if you throw it halfway and then are like, nah, I'm not throwing this anymore. How do you see Ankalaev versus Aspinall going? I'd favor Aspinall, but not confidently. Yeah, I haven't trained in a good few years. My only combat-based sports experience is in judo. Is this a good base? What would you recommend going for it? I mean, judo is a fine base. There's plenty of people who start in judo. I think Ian Gary started in judo. I mean, you have to learn striking if you want to go into MMA, of course. So get a good striking base, like either do Muay Thai or something along those lines. Incorporate Western boxing, though, as well. Is Ankalaev really fast or is his timing good? The 1-2 that stunned Alex looked quick. His timing's good. He's not actually especially fast frame for frame. Is he left the arena before the Ulberg fight? Wonder why they fell out. I actually did not see that, but interesting. Hamzat or Ankalaev? I would actually favor Hamzat there. Or would literally turn Ulberg into paraplegic, any orthodox fighter fighting him only sees the death of the lead leg. Ulberg has certain good things for that matchup, though. So I'm not going to count Ulberg out there. How come Ikram defended every single takedown from Khamzat, meanwhile DDP and Whitaker couldn't? Both DDP and Whitaker made really fundamental mistakes. Like, Whitaker tried to grab an underhook when he was already getting pushed back to the fence and had completely compromised balance, which is just effectively impossible. And, like, I don't know why you would do that. I don't know how that happened when, like, you had to have trained that scenario, but that is what it is, I guess. DDP just seemed like he had zero effective takedown defense whatsoever, and it was just like he was thinking, oh, I'm just going to get up every time, and then he's going to gas out. But if you don't make Chimaev work, obviously he's not going to gas out. So with why Ikram stuffed the takedowns is because he just used very, very fundamental defense. He got a good overhook, he stopped the body lock from happening, and when the body lock did happen, he just kept his balance, focused on disengaging it, and so on. Weili or Valentina? No one asked you this one, I reckon. I'm going to lean Weili, but I'm also biased because she's one of my favorite, or she is my favorite WMMA fighter of all time. Do you prefer single legs or double leg entries? Double legs, because I'm just better at them. I have the explosiveness to do blast double legs. Single legs because I'm not as educated in terms of wrestling. I'm not as good at. I think I'm going to sign up for the betting service tonight. Looking forward to joining the community. Hope to see you there soon then. If I could bet Cory to win the first round and lose the next 4, I would my entire house on it. You can bet something like that. With a lot of sports books, you can bet, say, like a plus, I think, 13.5? Or is it a 9.5 that would do that? Because 49.46 is 49. Yeah, it's a 9.5. If you think that Cory will win round 1 on all 3 scorecards and then not get finished, if you bet Cory plus 9.5 on a sportsbook that has that, that will win. Because Cory just needs 1 round to win a plus 9.5. Alex also doesn't really have the footwork, in my opinion, in this matchup. He's very stuck, sometimes and very flat. If he had movement like for Sean, I think he would do better. I mean, he doesn't have the better footwork, yeah, I agree with that. Oh, by the way, guys, if you are still here, please like the stream, because it seems like that changes the exposure the stream gets significant. So likes or even comments when the stream ends are very much appreciated. DDP was really relying on Khamzat gassing out? Yeah, for sure. Do you actually think Merab is improving, or was the O'Malley sub just because he wasn't a submission threat? I think it's a mixture of both, right? I do think that O'Malley misjudged the danger in that position because he didn't think that Merab could sub him. But I do think Merab is also working on being more dangerous because even his striking looked a lot more powerful that fight. Alexa Grosso versus Valentina Shevchenko is the most boring fight ever. I started doing my homework while watching that. Yeah, I unfortunately agree with that. What do you think of JDM versus Khamzat, Imavov, and Fluffy? JDM would have a hard time against Khamzat, in my opinion, because, well, actually, it depends what weight class. I was assuming JDM was moving up to 185. If we're talking about JDM at 170, then JDM wins. If we're talking about at 185, I think JDM's going to have a hard time because of the fact that he has to drop his hands to defend the takedowns. JDM versus Imavov? That's a tough one. Imavov is really fast, which always makes it difficult for me to pick against him. I don't know, I would have to think about that more. Fluffy, I would probably take JDM because Fluffy's just not much of a threat anywhere if you have decent fundamentals. I always got guillotined trying single legs. That probably means you're not disrupting the balance quickly enough. Because you don't want to be hanging on to a single leg. Did you see Magomedov getting chin? That was crazy. Yeah, I saw the clip of that. That was an impressive elbow. I kind of want to keep you niche, bro, but I appreciate it. And DDP's lack of ability to even frame in the Hamza fight was baffling to me. Yeah, it was not good. Sergio Pettis proving that he's a top dog at 125 to 135 was favorite part of tonight's card. Valid. What adjustments did Merab make to break Sean so quickly in the rematch? So Merab was a lot more comfortable striking on the feet in that one. I did have a reel specifically talking about it. It's going to give you a much better answer than I could just off the top of my head. But basically, Merab started timing something. I'm blanking on what he was timing. Let me find my reel where I was talking about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, he started timing the step and body cross. So O'Malley has a habit of throwing the step and body cross against shorter strikers who can wrestle. He did it a lot in the first fight, then he started doing it in the second fight as well. So whenever he saw O'Malley do it, he'd explode in with strikes whenever he saw that. So even though O'Malley had better wrestling defense, Merab was able to set up his offense a lot more easily because he was timing stuff effectively. Pound for pound, who has better boxing, Van or Jan? I would say Van, actually. I think people underrate how good Merab is on the feet. Yeah, he is better than people think on the feet. It's been interesting to see how dead UFC media has been this week. I don't know if it's just because of the month off or of pay-per-views or people being tired of how stale the UFC is becoming in advertising. Yeah, unfortunately, UFC really feels like it's slowing down, and I don't know what the deal is. There's just been no hype around this event, even though Pereira is supposed to be UFC's not biggest, but one of the biggest stars right now. I think it's just the lack of promo. I don't know if you guys have seen any ads and stuff for this event, but I haven't seen anything. We used to get those cool promos for even Nate Diaz versus Chimaev. And now even for a pay-per-view main event that's some massive grudge match, I don't see any promotion whatsoever. Which fighter has the highest fight IQ in your opinion? See, every time a fighter I think has good fight IQ, they love to prove me wrong, which is the problem. I still think DDP and John Silva do have high fight IQ, but they did both, of course, make fundamental mistakes in their last fights. Do you usually watch the whole UFC card, and do you tune into Dana White's Contender Series? Yes, I do both. JDM or DDP? Tough one also. I'd probably lean JDM though. Yeah, I haven't seen anything either. Yeah, it's crazy. All we get is embeds now, it feels. Yeah, and the embeds also kind of suck. It's so bad. They barely do any promotional content, no interviews, no press conferences, nothing. Yeah, it's I don't know what they're doing. I think Brendan Allen has very high fight IQ. I do. Fair. What do you think of Montel Jackson? Montel Jackson's one of those fighters who probably could be really good, but he just hasn't quite hit his stride yet. And the question is if he ever will, or if he just never does. It's kind of like, I love how I always just blank on everyone's names when I start streaming, but the guy who beat, Rafa Garcia, there we go. When I was breaking him down, I was like, he has all the fundamentals to be good, but he just hasn't shown it. And then he put it together against Gordon. He showed that he is a good fighter. It's one of those situations where if Montel Jackson starts putting things together properly, he is going to be terrifying at that weight class. But we'll see if he does. Gary or Bilal? Gary. If the UFC had boxing level promotion, it would be far more popular. Also, do you think the boxing promotes because of the lackluster start? Yes, boxing probably over promotes because they're kind of boring. This adds to this I assume you mean the ads for the event is super weak. Anyone would seriously just not know this event is happening. The UFC really just does the bare minimum because they think their stats carry that much. It seems like it, yeah. The embeddeds haven't been getting any views. Yeah, because they're just boring. Surprised to see you favor JDM in a lot of matchups. Why is he so good, in your opinion? Solid footwork, and just very, very good fundamentals. Like, JDM is a fighter who maybe isn't crazy talented, but develops such good fundamentals that it doesn't even matter. Yeah, I haven't seen any promotions or interviews this week or even this month. Yeah. Who has more aura? Magomed or Poatan? Right now, I don't even know. Montel or Figgy? See, I probably have to pick Montel, but it scares me as a pick because I haven't quite seen what I would want to out of Montel to think that he necessarily wins. But Figgy is old and Montel is getting better, so I have to pick him based on momentum. Who'd you pick for Abbas versus Pyfer? I picked Pyfer. Feels like UFC doesn't want stars who are bigger than the company. Yes, unfortunately it does. I'm mostly going off that Abbas can level up more each fight compared to Pyfer. I haven't really seen Abbas level up much, in my opinion. I think the reason why embedded episodes aren't working anymore is because people are realizing the fighters are boring with boring lifestyle routines outside of the characters we know. I don't think that's just why the embeddeds aren't working anymore. I think it's because they don't really go deep enough in trying to find stuff that's worth talking about. Because you could make a regular person seem very interesting if you actually really dig into their hobbies and like actually consider their life and their beliefs and so on, and like what they want to accomplish, their dreams, their fears, all that good stuff. They just don't really do that in embedded. Prime Dustin or Armin. I don't know if you meant Armin or Islam or Armin / Islam, but I'd probably take Armin over Poirier. Would I? I don't know. Because Armin's a lot more hittable than Islam. That's actually a tough question. I'm not positive. JDM has good hands and good ability to get up from bottom. Yeah, valid. Office comment, yes. Almost admitted myself to the psych ward after switching from Bangor Noche card to boxing. Fair. What do you think is Gautier's ceiling? I mean, he has a very high ceiling. I just don't know if he'll get there. Like, fighter ceilings are not always the best indications because we have no idea how much they're actually going to progress or not. JDM versus Islam is a fight for the ages. Yes, yet somehow it will just not be hyped at all, like on current trajectory. Prime Dustin or JDM? I'd probably take JDM there, but not confidently. I'm not going to answer the Frank Ocean question. Meant how does Prime Dustin do against Islam and Armin? He definitely has a shot against both of them, to say the least. Like, I picked Dustin to beat Islam for a reason, even if I was wrong about it. So Prime Dustin may find the knockout shot against Islam. I don't know, because he did make it close, even though he was a little older. And I guess against Armin, I would probably lean towards Dustin because Armin is so hittable. It doesn't help that the fighters choose to be boring in media because they don't want to risk the fan base really turning on them. I don't think they choose to be boring. I think it's just like they don't know what to do because the UFC doesn't really coach them. Cory has terrible takedown defense is the main issue in a hypothetical Armin fight. Yeah, it is. How old are you? I don't say my exact age here. Is it a hot take that Dustin Poirier wasn't a good boxer, but rather a brawler who only prefers to throw hands? I think that is a bit of a hot take, because even though I'm not a fan of Poirier as a person personally, his fundamental boxing is relatively solid. It's not like the highest level we've seen by any means, but it's solid. Zuckerberg versus Musk. I take Zuckerberg. Who you got in a potential fight between Adaba and Shara? Probably Adaba. Did you see Usman versus Hughes? What an absolute robbery. 50-45 is a rigged scorecard. Yeah, I agree with you. I had Hughes winning that. I will never forgive DC and Cruz for saying Hafez was winning 2-0 against JDM. Yeah, that was insane. Those commentators are horrific. How likely is it for Ilya to make a surprise appearance and KO Ankalaev and Pereira on the same night? I wouldn't even be surprised at this point. Which fighter do you think proved everyone wrong and pushed past his ceiling aside from Bronx? Good question. Probably Merab, actually. Like, people forget this now, but no one had high hopes for Merab for a very long time. Why do you beef with Poirier as a person? I don't want to say too much. It's not my stories to tell, but let's say he's not a good... a lot of his teammates and people who have trained with him have a lot of reasons to dislike him, from what I have heard from people who have trained with him. There's so many media outlets for fighters to do interviews where there's nothing special that the UFC does. If anything, the UFC does less than the fighters do to promote themselves. Yeah, the UFC just doesn't do anything. What do you make of MMA Guru's point that Jones had so much success because many of his opponents were tiny, like Rampage, Belfort, etc.? I don't think it's necessarily because they were tiny. I think it's more so because they weren't the highest level fighters. Like the fighters they're known because of the era they were in. They're not known because they were incredibly skilled, if that makes any sense. Michael Bisping, yeah, that is true. Thoughts on Magomedov getting KO'd in front of Khabib? The reaction was funny, to be fair. Which given the whole Hughes situation is somewhat satisfying now, which, like, I kind of hate to say it because Magomedov's not necessarily related to that whole, like, Usman-Hughes situation, but it's just, I don't know, like, I try to not be biased against Khabib's team, but they make it so hard with situations like the Usman thing. It's Bisping and Cruz especially that make people view close fights as dominant because they'll actively score rounds on commentary. I mean, DC does the exact same thing. He went past the ceiling. Yeah, I get what you mean. Bisping did, for sure, yeah. I started picking Rob after his fight with Cejudo, having regretted it since. Fair. Don't let any of the comments distract you from the fact that they still allow Muay Thai ups, and that could really affect an armbar. Thoughts on MMA Guru? I don't have any strong thoughts one way or the other. I mean, I do think that he is good for the space. I think that he's continued hype in a way where the UFC has not, which is crazy to say, but unfortunately I think it's true. Sorry, my English sucks. Do you know any other language aside from English? No worries. Do I know any language aside from English? I can understand some of a few languages, but I don't, like, speak any other language, like, properly conversationally. Shido's the most physically gifted fighter at Bantamweight. I could somewhat agree with that. You watch any other MMA YouTubers? I don't watch anyone consistently. Sometimes I catch a video, but ever since I started doing this myself, I kind of stopped watching other people. Why does it seem that the top light heavyweights today are all like 6'3"? MMA Guru point might make sense. To some extent it makes sense, but I think it was also a big skill difference. He did 90% of Jones's opponents didn't have skill sets or style to give him almost any challenge. Yeah, I agree with that. Khabib has a whole cult at this point. Yeah, it's kind of wild. I hate the Daggy fans more than I hate the fighters. Yeah, that is an extremely valid take. Like, the Daggy fans kind of ruin the fighters for the rest of people because of how insufferable they are. The fighters themselves, like some of them are cool. Like, I like Ikram Aliskerov, even though I wish he was not chinny and have no defense. But, like, as a person, he seems like a cool guy. I like Saeed Nurmagomedov also. But a lot of the others have just made themselves unlikable either because of the fans or because, like Umar and Usman are just so annoying in my opinion. But most of them are fine. It's just their fans are insufferable. Just woke up, can't stay because of my school trip, so enjoyed the trip. Have fun, I think. Jones was kind of a modern day light heavyweight, traveled to Ankara. Yeah, pretty much. Ilya versus Usman in a street fight. I mean, Ilya's winning that 11 times out of 10. Is Dagestan or Georgia the meta? I don't think either's the meta. I think we see some fighters from each have success, but like we saw Grum not have anything against Cowie Fernandez. And with Dagestan, I mean, most of them are losing now. Do you watch anime? Okay, it's not related, but Sora 2 video generation is very scary. I did somewhat when I was younger. I haven't in a while, though. What is Sora 2 video generation like anime style video generation? I haven't seen it. I like Bogdan Guskov as a potential title holder. Also find a sports book to bet. Cory for 9.5, thanks. No problem. Guskov, I mean, he's fun at least. I just think he lacks some fundamentals, but we'll see. Sora 2 is making like full-on anime fights and realistic videos. That's crazy. Yeah. Does Tagir get far at flyweight? And how would he have done if the Van fight actually happened? I think Van would have destroyed him most likely. Like we even saw in the Azat Maksum fight that if Maksum had another year or two to develop, he probably would have won. So I don't see Tagir getting very far, honestly. Thoughts on Luke Riley? I have no idea who that is, in all honesty. Watching Umar gas out and Khabib scream at him inaudibly in the corner was my favorite moment of the year. Made me an instant Merab fan. Fair. Max or JDM? That is tough. I'm not sure. Umar is a spoiled brat. I can't stand him. Yeah, exactly. Whereas the stuff you heard about Dustin, recent issues are from the past. It's kind of been continuous throughout his career. It's stuff of fighters I know who have trained with him and have told me stuff. MMA is the best base for MMA. Okay, I actually disagree with that take. And a lot of people are saying that, but I think I said this last week as well. I think that when a fighter does not have a specialty, they don't have a core game plan that they focus on, and because of that, they can end up a little bit weaker everywhere. And even though they are quote-unquote well-rounded, sometimes they just don't have like an X factor to their game that makes them special when they have a quote-unquote MMA base. Thoughts on Usman versus Hughes? I thought Hughes clearly won. It is what it is. Bro, the Daggy fans were fuming on your Islam video. Yeah, that was funny. It's like my whole genre is creating weakness videos, and then when I create a weakness video on their guy, they all of a sudden have an issue with it. Jones wins over Gustafsson and Glover, aged like, see me mean wine, not win. Glover has wins over Jan and many others. Modern light heavyweights, he gets too much for something essentially every old generation did. He just stuck around too long. The wins over Gustafsson and Glover didn't age as well as you think, because Gustafsson was really inconsistent after that, and Gustafsson also lost, like I really liked Gustafsson as both a person and a fighter. Like, let's look at his, it's like Gustafsson. Okay, I thought he beat DC, but it is what it is, right? Got knocked out by Rumble Johnson, right? And this is not long before the rematch. Or, I mean, I guess it is a few years before, but it is between their two fights. Lost to Anthony Smith after the John Jones fight. Lost to Fabricio Verdum after the John Jones fight, right? Like, he was not the same guy at that point in his career. So the second Gustafsson fight does not really feel like it had that much bearing, in my opinion. And the first Gustafsson fight, Jones effectively lost. So I don't think it really means that much, honestly. And then if we look at the Glover Teixeira fight, Like, Glover lost to Corey Anderson, by the way. Like, Glover got styled on by Gustafsson, of course. Glover got destroyed by Rumble Johnson. Glover also lost to Phil Davis at one point, right? Like, I'm not saying Glover was a terrible fighter by any means. He was a good fighter. But he's not, like, the world's beater that I think some people think he was. What about comics/manga? I mean, when I was younger, I read some, but I haven't in recent years. I think that anime got kind of stale as a genre. I mean, I tended to like more niche or dark anime. So, like, Shiki was one of my favorite anime. Um, but I think that stuff kind of stopped being as popular. If Jones retired after DC won, there would be zero arguments for the GOAT debate. I mean, I don't think he would be in the GOAT debate if he retired after DC won at all. Because, let's look at this. DC 1 was here, yeah. So if he had retired after DC 1, he would not have many, like, high-level wins at all. And then, like, yeah, he wouldn't have had the fact that he had terrible performances against everyone after that, but he wouldn't have proved everything, and he wouldn't have had that many title defenses. So he would definitely be under, like, even Anderson Silva at that point. Did you ever get knocked out? No, I've not. Van versus Takir would have gone exactly how the Tsuruya fight did. Except I think Van could have gotten a finish, but yeah. You make good views uploading videos. Do you have some vids uploading soon? Hopefully I can go back to it soon. I am planning to as soon as I can. What is the stylistic current meta and how do you see it changing? It really depends on the weight class. The metas, what works at one weight class does not work at another, necessarily. Which is why I think that double champs are much more pivotal to the GOAT status than just domination in a single weight class, personally. UFC needs to promote contender matchups. Title eliminators after a while mean nothing, and the UFC stopped caring about making title eliminators because their favorite fighters aren't in them. Yeah, I get that. I agree with that. I love your breakdowns on Instagram. Glad to see I actually caught one of your lives. Glad to see you here. Thanks for coming. I love the overlay on the new Yuri video. Almost looked mythic. Glad to hear it. I was definitely experimenting with that. The video did not do great views in all honesty, but I am going to keep experimenting with that style because I like it, and it seemed like a lot of you guys liked it also, so I'd rather just build up an audience of people who do like the same style that we do. I think Alexandre will beat Begsot comfortably. I mean, it's possible. Rumble versus current top 5 light heavyweights. Okay, Rumble could do weirdly good against them in all honesty. Because he was so ridiculously fast, and yeah, I mean, I might pick him against most of them. Is Bryce Mitchell a hateful, ignorant person, or just a moron? What do you think? Bryce is something. I don't want to talk too much about him, but how do I put this? Yeah, I think there's some things that Bryce just doesn't necessarily understand that make him reach certain conclusions. Let's put it that way. Jones making fun of Reyes for losing was pathetic, not to mention does he realize it makes his legacy look even worse. Yeah, exactly. Like, it makes me think that he wouldn't win against any, like, modern light heavyweights. It's kind of crazy. Crazy how Ilya was going to debut against Jan at Bantamweight. How would that fight have gone? I think the cut would have drained Ilya completely and he would have lost. John's record is super overrated 100%. Not to mention he needed PADs to do all that. Agreed. Death Note, what was the context behind that? I don't remember what the context was. But yes, Death Note is solid. Rerun, I don't know how to say that, but is a new anime that I consider really good. I'll try to check it out at some point. I just don't have as much time as I used to, unfortunately. Anime turned into bright color dopamine hits, fair. Only anime I like, probably AOT. Other are mostly Gooner bait. I don't think mostly are Gooner bait. I think it's just the mainstream ones. If you look at like the older, darker ones, they're kind of fun. AOT I liked until like season 3, personally. Double champ can get a bit murky because of favorable matchups. No, on that topic, how would you rate impressiveness for each double champ? Favorable matchups can occur, but it still means that you're able to function at 2 different metas. So I do think it is still impressive, even if you got a favorable matchup. Impressiveness for each double champ. I mean, Toporia's was obviously impressive just because of how dominant it was. McGregor's was impressive for similar reasons. Cejudo's was okay, not as good because like his opponent wasn't as good and the performance wasn't as good. Who else? Cormier's was just a cheating fluke in all honesty, so I don't even rate that. Jones was against Gon, was like okay. Who else is there? Darker Than Black was a good anime, but sadly got cancelled. Fair. Hadn't heard of it personally, but a lot of good ones got cancelled, unfortunately, because their monetization structure is weird. Alex Pereira versus Daniel Cormier, who wins? Very likely Alex Pereira. Because Cormier didn't have the cardio to wrestle for too long. So even if he was able to get Alex Pereira down in like rounds 1 and 2, which he probably could, he would have gotten knocked out in rounds 3 or 4. Rumble had that legit one-punch KO power. Yes, he did. Does Pereira have Yuri's number? Thanks for the Kirk response, by the way. I have no idea, but no problem, yeah. I have no idea if he does not. How does Jiří versus Ankalaev go? It really depends on Yuri's game plan. He has to be very aggressive. If he tries to fight technical, he's going to lose. If he goes all out and just tries to finish Ankalaev very quickly, he could do it, potentially. If only he had better submission defense, yeah, true. What do you think of Official Fight Lab? Are you just saying that because I went on a rant on it last week, or are you actually asking? But yeah, no, I despise that page, because 95% of what he says is either super obvious stuff that doesn't mean anything, or is like literally incorrect. How do you think 289 Charles versus 284 Volk would go? I believe Charles would have KO'd him, but can't. I'm not sure what you mean in the last part, but can't count him out, maybe you mean? I assume that's what you meant. I probably would lean Charles, yeah. Just because I don't think Volk would have put out Charles, and Charles' pressure probably would have gotten to him at some point. But yeah, you can't count out Volk. I agree with you there. You were saying you like dark anime, so I asked you about Death Note. Oh, okay. I liked Death Note in the beginning, and then I felt like it got kind of like, I don't want to say dumb, but kind of cringy later, because when he started just doing things for plot reasons, it felt like just being obsessively arrogant, it just kind of annoyed me. JoJo's Peak? I've never watched it, but fair, I've heard good things. Season 3 was the best season for AOT, what are you talking about? I did not like how they progressively started like introducing more and more random elements. I know a lot of people liked it, so if you liked it, I'm not saying you're wrong by any means. I just did not personally. You watched Monster Wild Stuff? No, I did not believe I have. I think Connor beats Ilya at 145. It's very possible. Ilya had a style that Connor was kind of made to beat in many ways. What height, weight, body type is the perfect type for someone to try to go from 125 to 135 all the way to heavyweight? I know it sounds stupid, but it would be interesting. I mean, you basically have to be just barely small enough to make flyweight, which is probably you have to be like 5'9". Fighting at heavyweight at 5'9" obviously would not be the easiest thing of all time, but if you had a grappling heavy style, it's possible. Double champ is impressive, yeah, but there's also instances where it's just not. Amanda Nunes became a double champ in division that never had rankings. I mean, we're not really including, like, female flyweight, right? Because I'm talking about the male division specifically here. Do you think Sandhagen has the best chance to pull off an upset on this card? Well, not on this card. There's many other potential upsets on this card. But out of Merab's opponents so far, yeah, I mean, he has the style but to potentially beat Merab, or at least give him more issues than most people. GSP's was impressive purely besides size difference. Fair. AOT was goated for until that ending. Very badly written ending, in my opinion. Fair. Code Geass is peak, not gonna lie. Yeah, I did like Code Geass. You haven't answered my Talbot Frank Ocean question yet. Yes, I answered your question by saying I was not going to answer that question. I can't believe people act like Ilya's win streak was against washed old home legends, then act like he's hiding from Evloev and Arman. He moved up to chase Islam. Yeah, I mean, people just want to discredit Ilya at this point, and even as someone who did not like Ilya in the beginning, I don't really understand why people are doing that. Like, you don't have to like Ilya, but he's a good fighter. Can you give some examples of Official Fight Lab's bad takes? So one example is, which I talked about last week as well, but when he talked about how Khamzat could sub Drakus, he said he would do it with a Darce, right? Now, maybe in some convoluted world, you could try to make that an argument. The problem is, he used footage from the Whitaker fight to try to explain how Khamzat could Darce DDP. And in that example, DDP had an underhook when he was getting up, on the side that you would have an underhook to prevent a Darce. So, having a Darce there would literally be impossible. So if anything, the clip he used proves that DDP would not get Darced. So it's like, I'm not even a spectacular grappler, right? Like, my grappler is just to round out my skill set because I'm a striker. And even I know that you can't hit a Darce from that position. Like, if you have grappled at all, you should know that. How much do you think the sport and weight go into street fight? Like, would Merab maul Crawford and Anthony Hernandez maul Anthony Joshua? Yeah, I mean, I think weight classes in general are not as stringent as people believe. So especially when you have a skill set much better for street fights, like having the ability to wrestle, then yeah, I mean, you're gonna win. Like, I would pick Pantoja to beat Anthony Joshua in a street fight. It doesn't need to be Hernandez. Official Fight Lab said you suck. I doubt Official Fight Lab even knows who I am, but if they say they suck, I will take that as a compliment. Steins Gate has really awesome time travel mechanics. It gets decently deep into cool concepts like goodness. Fair. I've thought about watching that a few times, I just never ended up doing it. I didn't know you had beef with Official Fight Lab. I can agree he says obvious stuff, but the incorrect stuff, not sure, I don't think. If you look through his stuff, you'll see the incorrect stuff. Thoughts on the Weasel? Am I just gonna be insulting like every MMA content creator today? I'm not a fan of him either. Let's just put it as that, right? I don't think he's egregious like Fight Lab is. I just do think that the Weasel's heavily biased. Death Note fell off after L died. Valid, yeah. Anime recommendations? I mean, it depends on what genre you like. Thoughts on UFC fumbling, Paddy versus Arman? I thought it should have been obvious, but maybe I'm missing something. Okay, I think that after Rogan made that mistake, and they put Paddy in the cage, they had to go with it and just book the fight. Like, they killed all hype by putting us on ice and being like, oh, who's going to get the title shot? We still don't know who's going to get the title shot. If they want to have this level of hype, like, or I shouldn't say this level, if they want to have any hype, we need to know who's getting the title shot. So I think they really should have just gone with it at that point and said, okay, well, Paddy's getting a title shot. AOT was peak when you didn't know anything about the mystery. Yeah, I agree with that. They should make an anime on Charles Oliveira. Valid. White Labs, is that the guy with long hair and has the cadence of an AI bot? I think so. And DC is the evolved weasel. Thanks, I think. The odds on Cory sub are so good. Is it worth putting money on? I don't think he's going to get a sub, to be honest. AOT tried to copy the Code Geass ending, but yeah, you don't try to copy the Code Geass ending when you don't have the setup for it. It's just, it was not a good decision, in my opinion. Every matchup from now for Ilya is a step down in competition, except Islam. I agree with that. Octagon Oracle versus Official Fight Lab UFC 400 main event. Who wins and how? I would take that. Honestly, like, there are, even though fighting for me would be reckless based on health stuff, there are a few fights I would just take just because I would feel like I would have to. Fight Lab is the door of MMA. Can you spot the underhook? Valid. What happened to your program that optimizes fighter training? Okay, so to give a quick update on that, I don't remember the last thing I said, but I do want to get help from some outside developers to polish it a bit. Because even though I feel like it is very good right now, I do want to create a pro mode, and I do want the user experience to be a little bit smoother. To do that, I don't think it is best for me to try to do it myself, because this stuff is not my specialty by any means. So I am looking to try to make an investment into getting that done. I still have to find developers that I can trust, which is not easy, but that is what I'm trying to do right now. Which MMA YouTuber is the best in my opinion? Me, but otherwise, I like Dan Hardy's podcast. He's one of the few people who says things that I don't always think of. Thoughts on Lucas Tracy and what side is Weasel biased towards? Lucas Tracy, I still haven't figured out if he's like trolling or not, or what the deal is, so I don't want to say too much because I don't know. What side the Weasel's biased? It depends on the fight. He tends to be biased towards like the whole Caucasus region fighters, though. Like, one thing that I do remember watching from Weasel before I completely stopped watching him is when he tried to argue that like Valentina clearly beat Grosso in the second fight, and then he threw a fit saying like that Grosso's knees were illegal in round 4, I think, and then everyone screamed at him in the comments, and then he finally made a follow-up video. It was like, oh yeah, maybe they weren't illegal. It's like, yeah, they clearly were not illegal. What are you talking about? I was arguing with people that Ilya wanted Arman, not Paddy. Big misunderstanding. Yeah, he wanted Arman, but Joe Rogan's mistake means that they should have just gone with Paddy, in my opinion. Recently been getting into Berserk kind of peak. I think I watched a little bit of it a long time ago. Create a mystical fighter. Mine would be Charles Oliveira with head movement. I think McGregor with better cardio would be insane. How does Holloway versus Topuria differ at lightweight? It doesn't. It might be even faster, to be honest. I'd pay my life savings to watch Oracle versus Fight Labs. Fair. Jack Slack, don't know much about it, to be honest. Personally, movie would be better than an anime, but it would suck if it ends with showing Charles going on a big loss streak. Yeah, he needs a win to go out on, in my opinion. Gamrot could be the good win to go out on if he can get this win. MMA Shay is the best MMA YouTuber. Might be. I don't watch that much of his content, but he seems like a reasonable guy. Finding devs in this day and age is complicated because most of them are just a bunch of vibe coders. Yeah, it is. Lucas Tracy is fun to watch because his takes are egregious and his jokes are funny. Fair enough. Lucas is funny and has a very specific style that works for him. Fair. Do you like heavy hands and Jack Slack? Don't know much about them, honestly. Lucas Tracy put Armin Saryukin in the top 10 in his all-time list. That is a take. Weasel is definitely biased towards Valentina. All 3 of his robbery videos on her, he gave her the decision. Yeah. Merab with Ilya's power would be insane, true. Embedded insanity, yeah, I get what you're saying. Embedded is just not fun. How do you think Connor's takedown defense versus Khabib looked good? I assume you're asking, do I think it looked good or bad? I think it looked fairly good. I think the problem is if you're not threatening something or like trying to scramble if you do get taken down, it's easy to just spam it. So I don't think the problem for McGregor was really the pure takedown defense, it was what comes after it. Charles Oliveira with fight IQ and head movement is literally a god amongst men. 0 glaze, by the way. Fair. Lee is definitely fighting for the first Paramount card. Very likely, yeah. Is Islam the GOAT with a win over JDM? I don't think. Is he? I think he's probably top 3, but I still don't think he passes GSP. UL versus GSP that fought Bisping. I'd probably take UL realistically. Was Cody 25 minutes against Cruz overrated? I don't think it was overrated. It was very impressive. I think the problem is that Cody just, first of all, had the emotional issues where he would just start brawling for no reason, and had some fundamental issues that he just didn't fix. And between the two, it was just too much. What do you think of the MMA community? I think it's gotten very hostile. Like, I like you guys. I like my community on Instagram and such as well. But I think that I feel like half of MMA is Daggy and non-Daggy fans screaming at each other now. And it's just so played out. What do you think about how Ngannou scammed the PFL? Yeah, I never liked Ngannou for a lot of reasons. I'm not surprised. MMA Guru, Weasel, and Lucas Tracy are definitely not good in my opinion. It's not what I watch MMA for. I like either full-on memes or actual cool in-depth analysis. Fair enough. Any further thoughts on JDM versus Islam? Nothing new, really. I haven't started my extensive tape study on the fight yet, though, so nothing crazy, nothing revolutionary here yet. Wilson Bilal versus Ian Gary. And who do you dislike the most between the two? I probably dislike Bilal more. I think Ian Gary's just cringy, but I don't have any strong feelings about him, honestly. I'm leaning Gary. I think that his fight IQ will make the difference and that he has the ability to stuff the takedowns and probably just outpoints him on the feet. Do you think Conor had a bad game plan against Khabib, or just Khabib was a bad matchup for him? Khabib was definitely a bad matchup for him, but in terms of bad game plan, yeah, I think he did have a bad game plan because he was kind of just, if I get taken down, I'll just stay there until the round ends. You can't do that. You have to try to get up. By the way, Prime Conor or Islam? I'd probably take Prime Conor because Islam didn't have Khabib's chain wrestling, I should say, not grappling. And Islam is more willing to strike on the feet and is a lot chinnier than Khabib as well. When Charles won, I feel like I won. There's something special about this kid, Velid. Great content as always, Oracle. I'll catch you later. Have a good one. And thank you. Have you gotten any threats or hate messages from your takes? Oh yeah, all the time. That's how like crazy social media has gotten. You make like predictions on a sport and you get death threats. It's weird. I don't really care at this point, but it's just strange. Since you've trained with UFC fighters, do you think they took vitamins? Some people do. Like you kind of know. It's an open secret with some guys. MMA Shay is cool. BC balances good analysis with funny, edgy means. Fair. By the way, I've always had this grand scheme theory in MMA that 90% of MMA fights are decided on the feet. For example, Conor lost to Khabib on the feet. The matchup on the feet dictates grappling too. I think it could set the tone, but I don't think that McGregor necessarily lost to Khabib on the feet. Because even though Khabib had one good moment on the feet, every other moment on the feet, Conor was winning. But yeah, it could set the tone because obviously if you can create a striking threat, it becomes a lot easier to grapple. How far do you go back for tape study? It really depends on the fight. It depends what styles also, because sometimes I'll go further back because they're fighting someone who has a similar style to someone they fought longer ago. So it's very variable. Do you think Prime Conor with cardio is the best fighter ever? If he kept evolving, but when he came back after like the Mayweather stuff and he just stopped like trying to learn, like yeah, no, that Conor was not. But if he had kept evolving, then maybe. What do you think most people get wrong doing tape study and predicting? Good question. I think that people don't look at specific tendencies and how they interact. People just look at how good a fighter seems, and they don't think about the matchup. Because a fighter doesn't always beat another fighter because they're better than them. Matchups are different than that. They interact in different ways. What don't you like? I assume you mean why don't you like Francis? I don't know. He just always rubbed me the wrong way, honestly. There was no logical reason. But then over time, you could start seeing more stuff with like how like the negotiations with the UFC. It's like a lot of people blame the UFC, but at a certain point, how much money are they supposed to offer him if they're offering him like the best contract they've ever offered, a heavyweight? And then the PFL stuff, and then the motor accident, if you know what I'm talking about, and so on. Did the Daggy fans threaten you? Yeah, it happens pretty frequently with them, unfortunately. Threatening people for having opinions is insane, especially on something as meaningless as sports. Yeah, exactly. It's so weird. Did you watch Shay roll with Jalen? I think I saw a short clip of it, but I don't think I saw the full thing. What's your early lean for Ellen versus RDR? I'm probably going to have to pick Ellen, and I'll probably regret it because Ellen will do something really stupid and get subbed or something. But I feel like Ellen has the better skill set for this fight. I trained with Roman Dolidze in about me, dude. Feels like the Gollum from CR. How is he that? Okay. Fair. Do you have a top favorite or top 3 anime? Probably Shiki, Code Geass, maybe Classroom of the Elite. I think he lost on the feet because of his approach, being tentative on the back foot, same as Gunn versus Merab, for example, or Charles versus Islam for tentative, trying to sell out on single shots. I mean, I don't think he was tentative on the back foot, though. Like, especially if you look at the times in which it was on the feet, he was trying to move forwards. I get what you're saying, but I don't think in Conor's case specifically, it was necessarily the thing. What is the flukiest victory you've seen? Like a fight where one guy should have won 10 out of 10 times but managed to lose. For me, it's definitely Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson. That is definitely a good example. I think that GSP versus Matt Serra is like the highest profile example of that. Like their skill sets are worlds apart, and GSP just somehow had that night where he lost. To an extent, I put John Silva versus Diego Lopez in that category, even though I know a lot of people don't like that. I think that was a pretty fluky win. Who else? Those are probably the best examples. My boxing goat, Rafael Espinoza, will defend his title against former title holder on November 15th. I recommend Rafael Espinoza only looks for finishes as a 6'1", 126er. 6'1", 126er? That's wild. But fair. Hopefully that's a good fight then. Do you have a romantic partner? Not currently. Too much work, unfortunately. But I probably should start trying to have somewhat of a life again. Do you play Clash Royale? No, I do not. John Silva versus Diego is not a fluke. You could say it's not. I mean, I understand the argument of people who's going to say it's not, but based on how one-sided it was outside of like singular moments, I feel like it was. Gotta go. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night. I think that if you're certain of how the fight will go on the feet in terms of approach, you can tell 90% about talking about the better striker. Well, I mean, there's plenty of times where someone's getting beaten up on the feet and then just is able to get a takedown and end the fight from there. So I'm not sure I agree there. Watching any football? I try to tune in sometimes to NFL, yeah. We can fill the void of a romantic partner oracle. Fair enough. Any dating tips? Just be yourself and avoid lawsuits and find the balance between the two of them. Man, I'm blanking because I know I got the smart sounding guy and I don't have any MMA questions. I usually have lots. Yeah, no worries. I'll be doing a stream next week as well anyways. This is not a good place to look for dating tips. Valid. Hey, what's up, man? I love your stuff on Instagram. Keep it up. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. Diego Lopez versus John Silva is definitely a hot take as a fluke. Maybe if we consider just a stand-up, I guess it was a fluke KO. But the first round showed Lopez definitely had ways of winning. Okay, but he only had ways of winning because Silva threw a non-setup spinning wheel kick out of nowhere for the first time in his career. Like, you could say that Lopez definitely took good advantage, right? Like, no disrespect to him there. But it was very strange in my opinion. Be yourself is only good advice if you're an attractive person. I don't necessarily agree with that because I think that the whole concept of like resonance, right? Where if your words match what you actually feel and think, you will automatically be more attractive in people's eyes in terms of body language, right? So I don't think that's just about attractiveness. I think that you will be perceived as more attractive if you are more aligned to who you actually are. Now, do you have to frame things in certain ways and not always just say like the most blatant thing of what you're thinking? Yeah, 100%. But I think that being yourself is still very important advice. Are you a tush push denier? I mean, it's really effective in NFL right now, so no. Also, why can't we donate? I haven't monetized the channel because I'm worried that UFC would get stricter about like my usage of film if I monetize this. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that. I agree with your Ngannou take. Dude always felt so slimy. Pre-Stipe won antics, then him not paying the $100 for the gym membership in France, contract disputes, PFL, motorcycle. Yeah, exactly, unfortunately. What do you think the game plan would be for Dan Hooker to beat Arman Tsarukyan? He has to keep feinting the knee up the middle, even if he doesn't really throw it. He really has to continuously make Arman at least overthink shooting immediately. And then after that, he has to not overextend and probably use footwork more than he normally does. Use in and out movements so that Arman's constantly guessing. And then probably look for the left hook because Arman loves to get hit by it. No, that real advice, my friend was sued by his ex. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, yeah, you gotta be careful with that stuff, unfortunately. Diego versus John wasn't one-sided. The issue is that John, in my opinion, started really believing his hype train, trying to hit trick shots like against everyone else when he could have otherwise won. Yeah, I agree with him definitely starting to have like main character syndrome is what I call it. Like the continuous spinning elbows without any setup, we're like, okay, you're feeling yourself a little too much here. New channel, the dating article, valid. Maybe of a point, I'm a Diego Lopez glazer, so I'm probably biased low-key. Fair enough. And again, not that like Lopez is a bad fighter by any means. I just think that John definitely had the skill set to beat him. John has that main character syndrome. Yes, exactly. Bro, I like being a UFC fan. It's so hard in the sense that girls don't like this sport. I know one girl who likes UFC, and she says Khabib is the GOAT and just watches some main events. Oh, you can get them into it if you have patience. But yeah, they're not going to automatically like it. It's a slow transition into it. You disagreed, but I think it was a huge part of the issue. Fair. And honestly, I don't even buy Ngannou's sob story of the sand mines. Yeah, I think the probability of it being true is not the highest if like we look pragmatically about like what there's actual evidence for or not. I'm not a fan of ifs. If he did that, if he didn't do that, the fight outcome happened and that's it. Fight outcome happened, but if we're looking at, if I'm being asked about fluke wins, then I have to consider ifs, right? Because otherwise you could say there's no fluke wins. But if I'm explicitly being asked, like, what are fluke wins in your opinion, then that is what it is. If I get a girlfriend, she says Khabib is the GOAT, I'm going full John Jones. Yeah. Is it fair to say the UFC prioritizes entertainment over sport? Obviously, it's not that black and white. I think you need a mixture of both, right? The UFC is not going to love you if you have no entertainment. If you have some, and then you're viable for the sport, that you'll do well. If you have a lot of entertainment, and you're less viable sport-wise, but still somewhat viable, then you could also get pushed. So you'll need a combination. I mean, girls like anything that you like if they like you enough. Not just UFC. Yeah, fair. Most unorthodox style you've ever seen, which fighter? Elias Theodorou, probably. There's just no actual way he got immigrated. He immigrated and got deported as many times he claimed. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Name a good thing about Bilal. He's durable. He has a good chin. Most unorthodox, easily dominant Cruz. He's up there. Wouldn't say he's the most unorthodox, but he's definitely unorthodox. I'm going to plug my betting stuff one more time. If you guys are betting on this event and you are not in my community still for some reason, we're up like 70-something units just in the last two events. It is the link near the bottom of the bio. Best takedown artist in UFC history. That's probably between Chimaev and Khabib, realistically. Oh, actually, GSP is up there as well. You could argue between any of the three, I think. Are there any fighter you are the most biased towards? Good question. Biased towards in what sense, though? Because I try not to be biased in terms of predictions, but like, if you're just asking what fighters I like, I mean, I have fighters I like, yeah. In terms of fighters I like, it tends to be styles I like. So like, I like a BSD style, even if it's sometimes defensively flawed, for example. I'd go GSP or Chimaev. They're fair takes, yeah. Bilal is really good. People still don't expect his boxing when he's the most solid pressure pocket boxers in the UFC. this division. He is the best traditional boxer besides JDM. I very, very heavily disagree there. I don't think anything he does is fundamentally sound. I've showed examples of it in my reels before. He does really, really stupid things in boxing. Like, his boxing is atrocious. You think RDA has the greatest resume ever? I mean, if you don't count wins and losses, then yes. If it's just like quality of comp, then yeah, probably. By the way, what does DDP need to do to beat DDP? I assume you mean Chimaev, not DDP. But he needs to just get fundamental takedown defense. I mean, I can't even say more than that because he just had none. Not to incite more threats, but where's Khabib all time in your eyes? Number rank, I guess. I think the 10 to 15 range is pretty fair. Some people argue higher, and it's like, if you want to argue 7, I'm not going to say you're wrong, right? I think anything above 7 gets a little questionable, but... Are you very into politics? I think it's important, but some people just revolve their life around it in controversy and try to bring politics everywhere, even comments. They sometimes ask you. I mean, I try to stay aware of politics, generally speaking, but I mean, we all have to live our lives, right? I don't think that we can, or I don't think that we should hyperfixate on it, personally. Bilal's entire defense is just eating shots and marauding forwards. Dude arguably didn't even beat Leon Edwards, biggest paper champ of all time. Yeah, I mean, I do think he beat Leon, even though it was a closer fight than people seem to remember. But yeah, his defense is atrocious. Don't forget all the higher than thou talk Francis did about fighter pay, health insurance, and in the end didn't achieve any of them. Hard to speak words that are louder than your actions. Yeah, exactly. I still find it funny that Bilal was so boring until the one fight he lost against JDM. That's probably more because JDM did anything, but it's still funny. Yeah, valid. Prime Colby or Chimaev? Probably Chimaev. But, I could see a world where Colby won, especially at 170. Yeah, actually, the more I think about it, the less confident I get. Because all Colby had to do was survive like 2 rounds, because he was going to make Chimaev work, unlike DDP. And there's definitely a reasonable chance he survived 2 rounds. Yeah, I might have to flip my pick on that. At 170, maybe Colby wins. Should ground and knees be legal? I think ground and knees and soccer kicks should be legal, to be honest. Hot girl really likes me, but she moved to another state. I train MMA now and stare into the sunset with tears in my eyes. To travel and see her. I get it, that sucks, but like, stay in contact, see her, all that stuff. Like, you can do, if you like her, you can do long distance stuff. Politics are annoying, to be honest. People take them too seriously. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, it of course affects our lives, but it's like, not every conversation needs to be dragged into it, of course. Ian Gary, I feel, is going to put on a performance on Bilal, where it's like, people will be asking how he was ever champ. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Also, fun fact, that was the guy who said he was looking forward to your Instagram DMs. Thanks, I appreciate it. I appreciate knowing that you guys are looking forward to this. Definitely makes it more exciting to do. Francis just wanted to fill his pockets. Everything else was just lip service to make himself look good, scammer. Yeah, I agree. Gary's movement is much better than Leon's. Leon's tendency to shell up when he's overwhelmed is just poor. Agreed. UFC 294 Kamaru or 319 Chimaev. I think Usman wins. Yes, I agree. Usman probably wins. Lock bets for this event. That's in my Discord if you sign up for that stuff. At 170, honestly, give me Colby by 48-47 decision. Yeah, I agree with you. Lolba to get the Edwards treatment. Yeah, pretty much. Also, where does Sean Brady fit into welter right now? Does he wait to get his title shot? I was thinking Shavkat, since Ian's fighting Bilal is out for 10 months, so what now? Maybe you do Usman, Brady. That's looking like the direction they have to go. Besides Lian, who's the biggest paper champ? Unpopular take, but I think it was DC, because he was never a legitimate champion at either weight class. Did you talk about Nurmagomedov versus Hughes? Yeah, I did. I mean, it was a robbery. I can't say much more than that. Like, he was very clearly won rounds 2, 3, and 5. Besides even the cheating, and like with the cheating involved, he should have won like a 48-46, I guess it would have been. So, I don't know. Like, don't fight those fighters in those regions. Like, you're not going to win a decision. Zalal is pushing Brady, hate propaganda saying he's sitting on his rank. Gary was ducking Brady. I don't know who's ducking who in that situation, but I do think Brady's willing to fight people, so yeah, I don't think that Brady's sitting on his rank by any means. Love DC as a fighter, but that's a fair take. Yeah, thanks. Alright, we'll probably wrap things up now. I appreciate you guys coming and staying so long. I know some of you guys have been here since the beginning. Quite a long stream to be here for a while, so thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the events. Hopefully it's an entertaining one. And if you guys are betting, good luck on those bets. So have a good night, everyone. I'll see you guys next time.